The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is very proud to be sponsored by Two Fat Lotties, Firestorm Games, and the generous donations of you, the listener. Thank you to everyone for your continued support. We really do appreciate it. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast, episode 267. It's all Greek to me, part Omega. With hosts Neil Shuck and Mike Hobbs, and guest Ralph Plowman. This show was recorded on the 8th of May, 2019. Hello, good evening, one and all, and welcome once again to another episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast, the podcast all about tabletop gaming. 'Tis I, the Brumby Dwarf, who still no one calls me that. I'm so disappointed. He's just... Anyway, hello, it's Neil, and here we are. Strangely, a week later than what I was anticipating. I'm not quite sure who got the schedule wrong. Apparently, it's my fault, but I just blame the fact that May has 5 weeks, and so somebody thinks they get a week off for some reason. I'm not quite sure why, but there we go. Hello, welcome anyway. We're here eventually, and I just like to introduce my partner in crime. Now here he is. It is the Welsh Wizard himself, the chief finder of wobbly shelves, and now an official spambassador himself. He is Mr. Michael Hobbs.
Hello, Neil. That's an intro. that's more than I expected. And let's get this out of the way first of all. You agreed it was going to be the 8th when we did our planning session about 3 weeks ago. I've got it in writing on a spreadsheet. No. So it's your fault. I'm just the secretary.
It's my fault. I got it wrong.
Hello, everybody. We're here.
Hello, and thank you to Mr. Carl Brown for that inspired introduction. I've got a new script editor. You see.
I see.
Yeah. This is what you get because for becoming a self-appointed inspector of breakfasts on Twitter.
That was fun. I enjoyed that immensely. If anybody doesn't follow me on Twitter, you're missing out on breakfast stuff now. There were some classics.
Yeah, we've moved on from Dunkgate, Jay. Jay, you're so far in the background now. I thought about. It's funny if I thought about bringing Cluty Dumplings into the mix, and decided against it.
Well, if you post a picture, I would have marked the Cluty Dumplings.
I didn't have one at the time. But so I didn't really get involved because there we go. But anyway, wonderful things happening on Twitter with Mr. Hobbs, which ended up being him officially branded a spambassador.
Yes, I'm very proud of that.
We joke not. This is from the official. Was it Spam Twitter account?
It is, yes.
They have a Twitter account?
From Mr. Spam himself. I think it's Spam the Younger. But yes, it is one of the Spam family.
Right, so at some point we are likely to be breaking out into the Spam song. Maybe. You have been warned. Right. Anyway, good evening, and we have a third chair who's currently sat there, probably wondering what the heck he's got himself into. Although he knows us well enough to know by now that this is just,
this is normal.
This is normal. Anyway, so we would like to welcome to the show, friend of the show, sometime gaming partner of the Welsh Wizard himself. It is Mr. Ralph Plowman. Hello, Ralph. How are you?
Hello, Neil. I'm very well, thank you. Hello, Mike.
Hello, Ralph. Nice to
Hello.
meet you.
Lovely to meet you. I'm very well. Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, it's lovely to have you here, and thank you for agreeing to come on. And I'm sure you know that the injury will heal soon.
The mental scars will go.
Oh no, they'll never go, mate. No. You'll wake up a dream in the night.
Yes. So you may remember, back in the dim distant past of a couple of weeks ago, we recorded part 1 of what we deemed to be a 2-part extravaganza. It's all Greek to me. So that was part Alpha. This is part Omega, which is the so last time we were talking about skirmish gaming, and so this time we have brought Mr. Plowman into the mix as the designated Hellenistic big battle aficionado. Is that about right, Ralph?
Enthusiast. I don't know about aficionado, but yes, I enjoy. I've always loved hoplite battles, or hoplite warfare rather. It was one of my first wargaming passions, but we'll come on to that later.
Cool. Okay. Well, talking about wargame passions, as you are listening to the show, and as people will know that this is although this is not officially Ralph's first time on the show, he did actually guest on a Salute interview a couple several years ago now. When I bumped into him wandering around the Excel Centre with certain Mr. Slade. However, it is officially his first time as a guest, and so as part of that, Ralph, we need from you an introduction to how on earth you got into gaming. So take it away, Mr. Plowman.
Gosh, so it's my first time with a headset. My first game, probably like a lot of people, was way back in 1980 when I started playing AD&D back at school with the old Player's Handbook and Dungeon Master's Guide. Many happy years playing that. And then happy days. And we've played other role-playing games as well at the time, the classics RuneQuest and Traveller. We used to play an awful lot at friends' houses and at school. And that was all I did for a long time. There was a friend of mine, Gary, who used to do Napoleonic wargaming, but it never appealed to me. I don't know why that was at the time, but I always stayed away from it. I think it was just the idea of too many figures on the table. I'd never get them painted. That comes back to haunt me now. But it wasn't until maybe 10 years later, and I was at work, and one of the chaps at work said, "Come in and have a look at this game." And he showed me how small a war game could be. He introduced me to DBA. And with just 12 units aside on a 2-foot by 2-foot table on a game that we could play in lunchtime, it's like, well, this is achievable for me. You know, I can just paint a few small armies. And a mutual friend was there as well, and he wanted to do Vikings and I wanted to do Greeks. So we bought a couple of armies and started playing DBA.
The famous Greek Viking wars.
We bought an army of each. So we
okay. Oh,
yeah, we didn't cross the stream back then. So we were playing that, and that branched out into Hordes of Things when my sort of first love of fantasy came back, and I realised that there's this fantasy version of it. So that was my wargaming history for a long time. I downloaded a few rule books. I think Andreas Svilagoy's Blades and Heroes was one I looked at, and some of the bigger battle versions of DBA. But we didn't really play those an awful lot until I moved to Gloucester, 9 years ago, and started going to the Gloucester Wargaming Club, where I met Mr. Matt Slade. And as you can imagine, when you come into contact with somebody who's got as many figures as he's got, as many rule sets as he's got, then the world just opened up in front of me. And soon I think it was shortly before then, he'd started playing Lardy games. I think he said he had one, didn't quite get the gist of it until he saw Rich playing it at a show, and then it clicked. And he introduced me to, I think, Through the Mud and the Blood first. I remember we did a Doctor Who game with it, I
okay.
think. I seem to remember Land Rovers ramming Daleks an awful lot around a church. And
that is, some would say that is an unusual way to use a set of rules designed for World War One.
it's not
But
in
there
the
we
book,
go.
I don't think, no.
No. I think it's in one of the supplements, one of the later ones.
Yet to be written.
Yeah.
That just opened up the world of wargaming to me, so I'll play anything, with anyone.
So Ralph, what's it like when Matt turns around and says he wants to play a game, comes back a week later with 2 fully painted armies, and you manage to paint a single figure?
Well, this happens a lot. He, as you know, he paints incredibly quickly, and it's quite handy because we do get to play the games that way. He tends to paint both sides. Oh, I've got so many armies I've started painting, but we've played the game a few times and moved on to the next one before I finish my army. So I've got a lot of projects that are still pending for games that we finished.
Yeah. And you store them in a big bucket marked Matt game. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Matt's fault.
Matt's fault, yeah.
Yeah. No, they're all there, just undercoated and half painted, waiting to be picked up and carried on.
Because you're not a bad painter, are you? You sort of you sort of gloss over your painting triumphs. Your award-winning painting.
I've always enjoyed painting, and for a long time, sort of when I first moved to Gloucester and before I went to the club, it was all I did. I would just paint figures, and it's a big part of the hobby for me. I like to practice. I like to paint. I like to see what I can do, but it's only in recent months, I suppose, really, that I've realised it's slowing me down. It's part of the problem with me not getting figures on the table, and it doesn't really matter because when you look at them on the table, they don't look any different. At arm's length, you can't tell it. It's just that I know that I've done what I like doing to them, and I've made them as good as I want to. If you see what I mean, I enjoy it. I like to do a I like to see a nicely turned out figure.
Yes, I'm the same as you.
Yeah.
I was going to say, how is your Lord of the Rings Uruk-hai army progressing?
Is this a reference to the one we took to Newark?
Indeed. The one I've painted masses of figures. He says.
Well, you see, I had about 100 orcs painted, and that's, by my standards, an enormous amount of figures for one army.
Yeah.
I think by most people's standards, especially Lord of the Rings. I mean, come on, yeah, the Lord of the Rings mass battle game. You don't actually need. I mean, I can't imagine why somebody on Earth would get. I don't know, maybe use 40 odd plus Warg Riders. Why on Earth would you use that amount of figures?
Well, Warg Riders, you wouldn't, would you? You never need that many Warg Riders. That's ridiculous.
60. It's 68, and I never know. I might need them one day.
68.
Well, that's what I always thought. These 100 orcs.
Yeah.
I thought these would be more than I'd ever need. I've got more in various states of paint that I've got second hand and what have you that I'll touch up and make a bit prettier. But we played a game at Newark. It was on a 12-foot by 4-foot table. I think it was 2 tables end to end.
Right.
And my contingent of 100 orcs was that little bit in the middle, in amongst the 1,000 odd orcs that Matt brought along.
Yeah.
It was scary. It really was. Yes, and that wasn't just the orcs, was it? It was all the mounted Rohan figures, etc. You did tend to find yourself on kind of like the thin end of Mr. Slade's gaming. Is that what you're telling us?
He does tend to contribute most of the figures to most of the games we play, which is why I like these small boutique-sized games.
Yeah.
I can get more of those done.
Yeah. That you buy before telling them, paint them all up. And go,
that's what
tell you what, let's play this.
Right. So having said that, you'll game pretty much anything these days. What are your current games of choice?
I have been playing a new game recently, which I think we're going to talk about later. Men of Bronze by Osprey.
Okay.
I've played that a few times. I've played it with Matt, and I've played it with Mark in Abergavenny. Hi, Mark. And also, I've been away recently. Spent some time in York with a friend up there, who forced me to play a game that I already owned but had never played, and that's Black Ops by Osprey.
Oh, yes, the old, the one from a certain Mr.
Bowers. Mr. Bowers.
Mr. Bowers, indeed. Yes.
And I have to say, I really enjoyed it. I don't think we played it particularly as to its strengths. It's meant to be a sort of stealth game with just a few figures creeping around and trying not to make noise. We played it we played a Falklands game, and we had a platoon of Argentinians dug in, resisting a couple of squads of commandos coming up the beach towards them, and it worked really well. I was very pleasantly surprised by it.
Cool.
So that's a good one. That's one I've been playing recently, and I've had the odd game of Chain of Command with Matt, and Rangers of Shadow Deep, of course, with the Abergavenny in the gaming capital of Wales.
Okay, so we've heard about the orcs. Just one other question. So out of all the figures and all the armies and the part projects that you currently own, what's your favourite?
My favourite, well, my secret passion, which is only secret to people who don't know me, is 15mm sci-fi. I love 15mm sci-fi, but I seldom play it because most of my 15mm sci-fi figures are unpainted,
right.
Unsurprisingly. But Star Grunt is one of the games I really want to get to the table. I haven't yet. Tell a lie. I played it once with Matt, and it was a bit stop-start. We didn't quite get the rules right, I don't think. So
it sounds like you and me need to get together.
Do you know, I want a Saturday game where I can just set the table up and have a good game all day long and not be limited to the 3 or 4 hours on a Wednesday evening or a Tuesday evening that we get, because I think it's a game that needs a bit of time dedicated to it. So that's one thing I will do. And the other figures that I really love are the 30mm elves by Thunderbolt Mountain, sculpted by Mr. Tom Meyer. And they stopped trading a year or two ago, so I collect those where I can now from eBay and such. So I've got an awful lot of those, but they're so well detailed, they scare me. I've only painted a few because they're quite daunting. The detail's incredible on them. But I will have an elf army of those one day, when my glacial painting catches up or speeds up.
So did you just collect the elves, or did you do? Because I must admit, the one range I really liked from Thunderbolt Mountain with was his Arthurians.
Mm.
Did you do those as well, or just the elves?
No, just I've got a few orcs, but mainly it's the elves.
Cool.
But I think that probably because the Arthurians are proper 25mm, I think, aren't they? So they'll be
yeah.
So that would work, I think, quite well in a Tolkienian sense with the nice tall elves. But those Arthurians do come up on eBay an awful lot, so I better not.
Do they?
I better not get tempted. Yeah, they're frequently on there.
Oh, I must admit, I must admit, I do tend to try and stay away from eBay and figure sales a lot.
It's dangerous.
Yeah, that way lies. I was going to say madness, but it's more like bankruptcy.
Yeah.
But there we go. Anyway, well, Ralph, thank you for introducing yourself. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
What we'll do, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, it is time for us all to enter the confessional booth, and let's find out what we've been spending our pennies on. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is very proud to be sponsored by Two Fat Lardies, purveyors of award-winning wargames rules. Now, the Lardies, not content with having one of the finest wargames podcasts in the shape of the Lardy Oddcast, they have now launched Lard TV on YouTube, a program that gives you regular insights into all aspects of the Lardy hobby. Recent episodes include a playthrough of a Swamp Fox supplement for sharp practice with Rich and Nick, as well as Rich taking you through a terrain build from his recent Chain of Command Far East project. Many more things are planned for this channel, and it can be found on YouTube at the Two Fat Lardies channel. Alternatively, search for Lard TV. And don't forget, you can find everything to do with Two Fat Lardies at their website, including the web store, a supporting blog, and a huge and vibrant forum. That's at twofatlardies.co.uk. Two Fat Lardies. Play the period, not the rules. Dearly beloved, we find ourselves here once again, where, come on, let's face it, we're gonna celebrate what we've been spending our money on. All this kind of doom and gloom about spending money. Hey, it's what we enjoy. So here we are. It's time to chat about what we've been buying. Mr. Hobbs, do you want to go first or shall I?
I can go first if you want.
Go on then.
It's actually not that much. I've been quite good recently. I bought Mansions of Madness.
We got you eventually.
Yeah, so when I say I've been quite good recently, I then kick in with a £70 game. So I bought Mansions. I bought an awful lot of card sleeves, Leo.
Well, yeah. Okay.
Because I've suddenly just discovered that I might need some for sleeving up things. So I got 1,000.
Because hang on a second, you got that and you got Journeys to Middle-earth.
Yeah, and Gloom of Kilforth and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And other games. So, Mansions of Madness has been bought. A lot of card sleeves have been bought.
Just the base game?
Yes. That's all I need, Neil. Just the base game.
Rank amateur, that's what I can say.
Yes, I am. I was going to have a game of Gloom of Kilforth the other day.
Yes.
And I didn't get around to it, but I was reading the rules and got really infused and thought, I could do with a mat. So I found a picture of a mat off Board Game Geek, and I went to Printomat. Printomat from Deep Cut Studios. And now I own a very, very nice Gloom of Kilforth mat. I still haven't played the game, but I got a damn fine mat, Neil.
Okay, so interestingly, because they've just published the Pledge Manager.
Yes, I know.
For Shadows over Kilforth.
Yeah.
Which includes the official playmats.
Yes.
However, you found an unofficial one.
Yes.
You haven't shown me this.
I
haven't seen. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh yes, but by the time this podcast goes out, you will have.
Ah, excellent.
Because I'll post a picture of it tomorrow on Twitter. It's very nice. And I placed a pre-order for War Games Atlantic. Their fantasy skeletons.
Is this the stuff that that may or may not bear some sort of resemblance to something that may have been seen in a film, in
a popular stop motion film?
Yes.
Indeed.
Let me read from the North Star website, if I may, Neil. They are the shades of men of Sparta, Athens, Thebes, and Macedon, where a necromancer plunders the coins meant for Sharon. She can reanimate their remains and bind them to her will. Only by removing the skull from the body or destroying the coins may the warriors break their curse and return to the grave. The Skeleton Warriors set is compatible with the forthcoming Mythic, a fantasy version of Mortal Gods.
Oh, and that might just pique my interest in Mortal Gods.
Yes.
I tell you, when that when we were playtesting it, I mean, I was chatting with Mr. Hobbs about it, and Andy's not. I mean, it's like Andy's obviously a war games fan. But he's much more of an historical fan than he is a fantasy fan. Like, I mean, for example, I think most people quote the fact that he was dead set against having ninjas in Test of Honor. But basically, Warlord said, "It's Japan. You've got to have ninjas." He was like, "Rumph," you know. However, the interesting thing is, especially because he basically turned around and said, especially when you've got the likes of Homer, who essentially blend history and fantasy together. It basically boils down to the Greek mythos is so much part of their history and part of their culture that actually, that kind of made him feel comfortable about doing it, and so I mean, I must admit, I was pleased because I might own the odd Greek mythic creature for some game or other that I collected a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, it just depends if they can. If they can release a supplement and just say, look, like give us the rules, give us the cards, and then let us sort everything else out. I'll be happy.
I think that would probably justify the low figure count for the game. I always struggled with Mortal Gods because it's got such a low figure count, and I don't see hoplites forming phalanxes when there's only a few of them. But when you've got skeletons involved and you talk about Harryhausen and Greek myths, anything goes.
Yeah.
Obviously, so you're one of these people that when Mr. Hobbs went, okay, we're forming a phalanx using
call that a
9
phalanx.
figures.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. You'd be one of these people wielding the flame, wielding the torches and pitchforks.
No, it would stop me probably buying into the game. I'm sure Mr. Hobbs would have probably brought it round on a Tuesday to Abergavenny at some point, and I'd love it and play it. I mean, it doesn't stop it being a fun game, but it's not a hoplite battle game, is it?
No, it's not. It most definitely isn't.
I know.
I mean, he's quite keen about that. But anyway,
it's the equivalent of 12 men carrying a flag, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Anyway, what's the phrase? We digress.
Yes,
sorry.
Just slightly. Right, Mr. Hobbs.
Back in the back to my confessional, which is almost done. Another thing which has arrived, the last few packs of my 15mm Thracian army, which have been lovely painted by ATC. So Gareth from ATC has once again done a fantastic job. So my Thracian army is complete for Sword and Spear.
Excellent.
Or to the strongest.
Or a couple of other games I could think of.
Yeah, any other game that you need ranked up figures. Yeah.
Yes, element-based
games, yeah.
Awesome description. Indeed. Fantastic stuff.
That's me. Simple one.
Cool. Well, okay. Mr. Plowman. Okay, so give us your recent highlights.
What have I been purchasing?
Indeed.
Not an awful lot, and I have to say. Tiny War Games had an offer on Facebook a couple of weeks ago. Their 6x4 cloth mats were particularly cheap. He said if he can get 100 people interested and commit to buy, he'll sell them at slightly under half price or thereabouts, I think it was. So I may have ordered a couple of those. They haven't arrived yet. So they're very nice. I've got one of his. I think I've got the North African one, which is the generic sort of scrubland, deserty type thing. And it's very nice. So got a couple of those coming. I've purchased a game, the Men of Bronze, obviously. Came out quite recently. More of that later. And the only other thing I bought was a whole box of second-hand 15mm sci-fi figures from a chap in Holland. And there's quite a few figures, more than I can go through off the top of my head. But the crowning glory of the order was the Kurasan Colossal Crawler Battle Mech. And I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh, wow.
It's a 15mm scale figure. It looks like a big mechanical beetle, and it's about 6 inches across, 6 inches deep, and about 3 inches high, with 2 huge guns on its back. And it's beautiful.
Very nice.
Yes, and that.
It has to be said. The Kurasan 15mm sci-fi ranges are very nice. However, I really do wish they had a UK distributor.
Yeah.
Or maybe I don't wish they had a UK distributor, one or the other.
Matt and I have sort of clubbed together before now to get an order across, because the postage isn't cheap these days, and then you get stung by customs as well. Yeah. It really does rack up the cost of ordering from America generally. But he's got some lovely stuff.
I got a couple of armies done with Kurasan.
Have you?
Very nice. He's sort of Soviet, and his ones that aren't sort of Halo-ish or Aliens style. I've got some of those not Aliens armoured car things as well.
Oh yes, I think there are a couple of those in the box I got from Holland.
They're big.
Oh. Yes, they're very big.
Yes. I got one of those in 28mm. I had to get one of those in 28mm. Oh, that is a nice kit.
He's got digressing again. Sorry, his 15mm fantasy range has got a set of figures sculpted by Tom Meyer, and his 15mm figures are unbelievable.
Oh,
I'd go and have a look.
No, I don't do fancy in 15mm.
Yet.
I don't. I do it in 10mm and 28. That's enough. 3 scales is enough.
Quite. So I think that's pretty much all I've bought recently. It's been quite quiet.
Oh, cool. So you're still enjoying your decision to have 2-wave shipping of Nemesis.
Oh, it's the best decision I ever made, Neil. Everybody should have done it.
Yes, as I'm waiting till August.
August? Has been put back, Neil?
August.
God.
But have you been getting the print and play for the expansions?
No.
No. Oh, I'll have to print and play them.
What have I got to expand?
That's a very good point.
Good point, yeah.
Right, okay, so... Well, okay, thank you, Ralph. Very restrained. Right, I don't remember exactly where I was and what I last talked about. Right, I think, if I remember rightly, I've actually been, pretty good. I think 2 things I got, which I don't think I mentioned. Got the latest 2 releases from Legion, which is the Imperial tank and the Rebel Landspeeder. So pick those up, which are rather nice.
Saga Fantasy? You get that? Some of it?
Yeah, there. You see, I was leading myself. I was bringing myself to gathering myself for Saga Fantasy.
Big stroppy deal.
I'm not very happy.
Stroppy
at all. Okay, yes. So I having pre-ordered Saga Fantasy and decided and made the decision to support my friendly local game store, and they were offering a pre-order of Saga Fantasy, so I ordered from my friendly local game store. So went because it was released a couple of weeks ago. Went down to collect it. We were down there on the evening anyway. We were playing the game, and I said, "Okay, is it here?" And I was then subsequently informed, "Well, most of it." What do you mean, most of it? Got a slight problem. What? We haven't got any dice.
Ah, well, never mind.
Right, hang on a minute. What do you mean you haven't got any dice? Well, we haven't been supplied with any dice. They're out of stock. But I pre-ordered dice. yeah, we know, we sent the pre-order through, and they basically turned around and said all the dice sold out before they fulfilled the distribution pre-orders. Okay, so I have just spent, because I have gone out and bought second edition Saga in order to play Saga Age of Magic, and including the dice, so I've spent, best part of £100 on a game that I cannot play because we ain't got any dice. And it's likely to be several weeks before we get any dice.
Never mind.
I haven't even taken the cellophane off the book. I was naffed
Oh,
off.
he was, listeners.
Serious. I know. The problem is, you see, I mean, okay, how long have people been clamouring for a fantasy version of Saga? How long have people been asking for it? Okay, so, to my mind, there is a problem somewhere. Now, I know, Hobbsy, you're great mates with the guys at Gripping Beast. So, I know you're going to turn around and go, well, what have you. But somewhere along the line, somebody has cocked up big time. Because either distributors haven't passed through the scale of the pre-orders they've been getting, so there's a communication problem there, or, let's face it, hang on, what happened when Saga was originally released? Okay, that, I admit that was an unknown quantity. And they turned around and went, people might buy dice off us. And they got completely blown away. However, here we are several years down the line, and it is known how popular a game system is, and people have been crying out for the fantasy version. And here we are yet again in the situation where we, not enough dice have been produced. Now, I know dice are expensive. They're probably the most expensive part of producing the game. Although, having said that, the tarot-sized spell cards, which are rather nice, are going to be expensive to produce. But, so there is a particular financial commitment involved in saying, right, we'll have X thousand copies of each set of dice, please. But especially when you have a game that even, you now have 3 different sets of dice because you have a dedicated set of battle dice, of magic dice. And we run out. And I feel that because I've made the decision to support my friendly local game store, I've been penalised because I didn't order it direct and therefore got to pick it up at Salute. I made the decision to say I'm going to support my local game store and I'll buy it from them. And therefore I haven't got a game to play.
I'll be honest with you, I don't actually know who manufactures the dice. I don't think it's Gripping Beast anymore. But somebody has cocked up.
Well, I would imagine. I would imagine they will go. I mean, especially with the way Studio Tomahawk work these days. It will be out with a. I mean, I'm not blaming. Whether it's. I mean, it could well be Studio Tomahawk that's the issue with. But somewhere along the line, somebody has failed to communicate with somebody, and as a result, we're having a situation where I am sure I am not the only one. I'm positive I'm not I know I'm not the only one. But, I'm sorry, that, for me, was a small hill on which...
It does seem odd. It's odd that they haven't made enough sets of dice to go with the number of sets of rules they've printed. Because you're going to think anybody who buys rules is going to want to buy dice, and they'll probably want to keep more dice back for more people who want them after the initial release, because people will have dice who share rule books, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I can only talk about what happened originally.
Yeah.
I haven't been involved.
Yeah, I know originally that the whole issue was the fact of, well, hang on a second, who is going to want custom dice? Especially when we turned around and said, this is what you can do, and we've got things so you can make your own dice, and the whole custom dice thing took them completely by surprise, and I accept that. However,
plus there was the fact that the first batch half of them were ruined. No. Which didn't help matters. But no, they've been selling dice, and I didn't know that when Grip and Beast were doing the manufacturing of were getting the dice produced, that they had upped the production and they put a lot of money into it. But Saga 2 is different. I think Stuart Hoplomachia are now taking a lot more control of the production and stuff. So, there has been a cock up. So I don't know what happened, but I might buy just calm down.
It could be that one of the initial batches weren't right. There were problems with the manufacture, and they're not going to delay the game just for that. So some will have to go out without dice. But it's
even so
difficult to take, isn't it?
Yeah, especially when it's like okay. Right now, before anybody says anything, I know they'll turn around and say, "Well, you haven't got the figures to make an army with anyway."
That's a good point. Well made.
Actually, I might have. It's.
You've got time to read the rules before you get.
Be fine.
Right. Okay. So, yes.
I can lend you my old dice if you want them for the old game, so you can play Historical Saga. That helps. No?
Thank you.
Is that helping?
Mr. Hobbs. Right, so, rant over.
Rant number 1 over.
Yes. So, yes, so that was disappointing. Other than that, actually, I'm trying to think. I think the last couple of weeks have been. I think I've been quite good. Oh, I haven't physically got it yet, so I don't know if it counts. But because I know it's actually out and it's waiting for me. I did order the playmat for Journeys in Middle-earth, which was published last week. So when I go down to Battlefield Hobbs on Friday, I should have one waiting for me, which is a nice surprise because originally they were saying that wasn't going to get published that wasn't getting produced to the end of June. So it was nice. So it was nice for that to come out.
So is that the new game that's just come out that's got an app with it?
Yes.
But that's a board game.
Yes.
How does the mat work with that? You put down tiles, don't you?
It's just a surface to put the tiles on to stop them moving around,
like a table or something.
To put your tile, to put your tiles and to put your cards on. Yeah, because it's like if a lot of people play card games, they will take neoprene card. They make neoprene card mats. This is where you get all these hundreds of card mats that they produce for the likes of Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh and all that sort of thing. Because it's quite popular. Anyway, what they've done is produced a 3x3 playmat, and it is the classic Middle-earth. It's classic Middle-earth mat.
Lovely.
It's kind of the aged brown mat. Sort of thing, and it is just a surface to place. It's a surface to place everything on, and it does actually. Interestingly, having played it on a table, playing it on a mat actually is a bit easier.
Shows you where to put all your cards, I suppose.
No, it doesn't. It's not like that. It's a free for. Unfortunately, they did on the pre-order. On Fantasy Flight's site, they did actually have player mats. So they had physical player mats with areas to put all your cards, and they were like a pre-order special, if you like.
Right.
And they sold out in like seconds. I've been asked since, "Are you going to produce these again?" No. Oh.
No, they were too popular.
It was gutting, and of course. One of these things. I wasn't going to pre-order from Fantasy Flight Direct, was I? So no, So anyway, so that's coming, and I think that is about it.
Blimey, that's good for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a case of I've been, I think as we deemed it, a bit spendy over the last couple of months. With one thing and another, and so it's reining the finances in for a few weeks because, let's face it, we got Partisan in 2 weeks, and then a couple of weeks after that, we've got a certain large show in Birmingham.
It's worse than that, Neil. I've got the Firestorm doing a buy there on Saturday.
Oh yes, I'd forgotten about that.
An Operation Market Garden after Birmingham.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah, more of which shortly. Yes. So that's about it. So, before we finish, anything on the horizon? Anything shiny that's caught people's eyes at all?
Oh, no.
The only thing that really tempted me was Simon's new Kickstarter for Bloodborne. But Neil, you talked me out of it like a good friend.
Did I? I did. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for that.
So which bit actually made you turn around and say, no, I'm not going to buy it?
I think it's when I looked at the Kickstarter in more detail. I noticed a little banner saying awaiting sign off by from license holder.
Oh. Oh, yes.
I mean, it looks gorgeous.
Yes.
It's a fun little game, lovely miniatures. You know, the quality you would expect from Cool Miniature. But yeah, I just thought, do I need another skirmish game based on a computer game which I know nothing about, that hasn't had the sign off yet from the license holder?
Yes, I recognise those words. Do you need a game based on a computer game that you haven't played and know nothing about? Yes. Yes, wise words. I wonder who told you that. Anyway,
I think it was you. That's it.
Cool. I must admit, I've been good. It's more of a case of I have literally been keeping my head down. I've been going. I'm not looking at anything. No, go away. I'm not looking. I'm not looking. Not until after the expo. I'm not looking. So there we go. I actually this month. I mean, it's a couple of interesting bits of news, but I think we'll cover that maybe in the next bit, or tell you what, we'll cover that at the end of the show. A couple of little interesting snippets of news I picked up recently. But no, yes, I have been actively avoiding stuff. In all honesty.
That's exactly what I've been doing. I've been trying not to play new games where possible. Play the games I've got so that I can get the figures painted for the games I've got before going on to everything else. And I've been mostly successful in that.
Yeah, I mean, you've fully painted your Rangers figures.
Both of them.
Both of them, yeah.
Yeah. I've only strayed with Men of Bronze, but I've got figures for that, so that doesn't count. Yeah, not too bad.
Have you finished painting the trousers on your elf yet?
I will not paint trousers on my elf.
It's got naked legs there. It's a naked-legged elf. He keeps telling us it's not leather.
Flesh-coloured leggings.
It's not right, Neil.
Do they have? Tell a lie. One thing that was shiny, slightly shiny. That, funny enough, is also potentially related to the your previous pre-order. Did you notice that there's a company that's looking to produce multi-part plastic fawns in 28mm?
I know what you're going to say. Yeah, they're nice, aren't they?
Yes, which could also fit in well with at least a couple of games that we have talked about already. Yes,
they produced a Narnia, aren't they? Some sort of Narnia game. Is that right?
I have heard there are whispers of a Narnia war game, which is like, it does strike me that it's like, hang on a second. So you're producing a game based on one battle, but
there was lots of books.
Lots of books which don't include a lot of fighting. Yeah, and let's face it. If you look at the description of the battle in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I mean, it's probably even shorter than the one in The Hobbit, the Battle of Five Armies.
It wasn't Bilbo's fault that he banged his head and came to after the battle.
I mean, as far as what's the phrase? Literary mechanisms go, for not having to
That's a good one.
for not having to write huge battle scenes. The fact that your narrator bangs his head and he's knocked unconscious, and he's only told about the highlights afterwards. It's got to be right up there with the best, isn't it?
And then the Eagles arrived.
Oh yeah, Deus Ex Eagle. Sorry, yeah. Moving swiftly on. Yes. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, hobby time! Hi everyone, Neon here. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you are, I'm wondering, would you consider becoming a patron of the show? For as little as $1 a month, you can help support us in what we're doing with the show. For that, you can get access to a monthly question and answer show. That will also allow you to ask questions. If you pledge more, you potentially get bonus podcasts. And you never know, you might even get invited to be on the show yourself. If you want to know more details, please follow the link to our Patreon page, which is on the front of the website. That's www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. Thanks a lot. Okay, time to chat about what we've been up to on the hobby front, what we've been playing, what we've been painting, and maybe even chat about a hobby tip or two. Obviously, one thing we definitely have to revisit, since I so cruelly cut him off on the last show, is that we do need to get a hobby tip and visit Mr. Hobbs and ask him about how he bases his figures. So remind me that we need to do that in a minute.
Oh yes, I forgot about that.
He's forgotten about that one. Yes, what that be from the last show? Do you want? Do you want to know how I base my figures? No, moving on. Yes. No, I haven't got time. Oh, right, okay. Right, okay. Yeah, Mr. Hobbs, go on. Crack on first.
Okay. Games I've been playing. I had a game of Mansions of Madness in the forest with Mr. Slade and Mr. Plowman and Mr. Ems.
In the forest.
Mm.
Oh, hang on. Is this the forest with the hill?
No, it was actually in the forest of Deep.
Oh, sorry.
At Matt's house.
Sorry, I was misinterpreting the location for the scenario. I do apologise.
Yeah.
It's a forest on there.
We played the forest yesterday. We were in a forest in a conservatory, and night fell as we were playing Mansions. I went mad again. Matt went mad again. Oh, I was sorry, Matt went mad for the first time. It was fun. We got
It's a good game, isn't it?
Yeah, and it literally.
Which scenario did you play?
We did the Alleyways of Innsmouth or Escape from Innsmouth.
Oh yeah, the one that's actually based on the second part of the Innsmouth novel, the one where you start and you're in the bedroom.
Yes.
Yes.
And it went down from there.
That is brilliant. That is a really good scenario. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Matt saved me from a fate worse than death.
So did you wantonly just attack anybody this time round?
No, not really. We tried to keep away from. Yeah, we tried to keep
avoided the mob.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Well, I was just wondering, after your first experience of playing Mansions, when you broke the rules, having gone insane, and just basically decided that you wanted to kill Jeff. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
Yeah. No, we didn't. We played it properly.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it was great game. And literally, the nights I got home and bought it. because it was just like, I need this game in my life. It was just fantastic.
It is good.
Yeah, so I got that.
It is a good game.
I had a game of Chain of Command at the Sheep's Nest with Jeff and Matt and other Jeff, and lost badly, very, very badly. But yeah, that was good fun. And I played Journey to Middle Earth and a solo game. Good fun.
Excellent stuff. Shall we come back? I want to have a discussion with you about something you said about
Okay.
that. But we'll come back to that shortly.
Come back to that. And then on the sort of hobby side, lots of Griggs being painted, Bad Widows Amazons, painted up a couple of gods from Mythic Battles.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Persephone and Athena, yeah. Nice
yeah,
jobs, you know?
fun.
Starting to crack through those, aren't you? Because you did the Minotaur.
Yeah, I
as
did the
well, didn't
Minotaur, and I got Cerberus and Medusa on my painting desk, as well as 8 Peltists. So yeah, all go well. That's about it.
you? Okay, so I'll ask the question: what are you using the same basing method for all your figures, or are you doing different basing methods?
Doing different basing methods depending on my whim.
Okay, so I'll ask the question now because people have been asking, Mike, what is your usual basing method?
Good question. I'm glad you asked me that. Well, there are 3 things you need for my basing method. I use brown ready mixed wood filler, which you can buy from. Well, I buy from B&Q, if I'm being honest with you. But you can buy from any 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 DIY place. And the thing with this ready mix stuff is you can mix it down with water and paint.
Right.
So what I do is I get a separate airtight pot. I put a couple of tablespoons of the ready mixed wood filler into that. Add some water. Put a big squidge of brown poster paint into it. And stir it around until it's about the consistency of thick PVA. That makes sense. And then you can put a lid on it and you can keep it. So I make it up in bulk. I make it about half pint at a time.
Right.
And you just keep, as you open it, you keep stirring it. And with your ready mixed wood filler as well, once you opened it, put some water over the top. Top it up with water. Because it stops that from hardening up as well.
Right, so it keeps like a seal on it.
Yeah.
Being with water. Oh, cool. Yeah.
So you make up that mixture of brown gunky stuff. I then make up another mixture of sand and dried tea leaves.
Tea leaves.
Yes. Yeah. Or you can use coffee grinds if you want.
Instead of sand?
No, instead of tea leaves, if you don't drink tea. Now, I don't use sharp sand. I use builder's sand in mine, and there's a very good reason for that, Neil.
Why is that then?
Because 10 years ago when I had some work done in the house and the builders left behind a bag of sand, it was builder's sand.
Yeah.
Possibly the only thing cheaper than an 80p sack of sharp sand.
Well, amazingly enough, the reason I started using sharp sand was because I had a bag left over from when I built my patio.
Yeah.
I use sharp sand as well because 80p for a huge sack, and I've still got the one I started using years ago.
Yeah, this is 10 years old and I've hardly touched the top of it. So, so I mix dry tea leaves. So, make a cup of tea, keep the tea bag, dry it out, take the tea out of the bag, and then mix sort of two, 1-to-1.
So why do you use tea leaves?
Good question, Neil. I'm glad you asked me that. It's because of the tannin in the tea leaves. So what you do is you paint on this putty mixture, because it's like PVA, you can use a brush to put around. As soon as you put it on the base, you dip in your mixture of sands and tea leaves, and then the brown paint from the putty goes through into the tea leaves, and it sort of colours the sand nicely. So you don't need to put a base coat on it. So you do that, leave it to dry, slap on some PVA mortar mix to seal it all down, leave it overnight, and then the next day paint it up. And
I'm still not sure what the role of the tea leaves is in that.
well, the tea leaves have got tannin in them, and the tannin comes out of the tea leaves and actually colours some of the sand. And it also gives you a different texture to the sand as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you've coloured the PVA mix, haven't you?
The putty mix, yeah. The putty mix is brown. So you've got that colour coming through. You've also got the tannin from the teas coming through.
And that just bleeds out into the sand?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And it just gives you a slightly different texture. I put all sorts of tea leaves in there. And then, paint it up. I used the Bacchus painting mixture. I used 2 of those paints. I always finish like a bone colour on top. And then I just use sort of flocks. I mix up flocks. I make like a flock mix for each army I do. Which is sort of static grasses, flocks, and woodland scenics, spongy mix, and gale force line. The gale force line pots you can buy all this stuff. Mix those together in a little packing container. And then just a little bit of PVA, put some of that mix on it, and it just gives you it's different colours and different textures in there. So I make some which are sort of greenish, some which are sort of yellowy mix for like autumn colour, or for, depends what I want the army to look like. And then if I'm feeling really adventurous, I might put the occasional touch down. But that's it. It's really simple. And the putty just helps seal around the edge of a figure base if there is one. And you can paint it on as well. And it just, I find it's a little bit better than just using plain PVA. Because you don't have to do that base coat that that a lot of people do over your sand. Because your sand tea leaf mixture gives you a nice light browny colour you can paint over. There you go.
Okay. So a question for you, and actually for Mr. Plowman while you're at it. So the question is, to edge your base or not?
Edge it black.
I use different colours.
You use different
again,
colours?
it depends on my mood.
On the same base?
No. That'd be madness.
What are you talking about? Reds, blues, yellows? What?
No, I think my Lord of the Rings stuff I use like a tan colour. Like a dark brown tan colour. For gods and things, or for anything sort of sci-fi, I'll use like a copper colour.
All right. So why do you use? So why copper colour?
No, I just liked it.
It looks pretty.
It looks pretty. Yeah.
One thing I did with some of my sci-fi figures, I started, because they're 15mm, and so that you can see what's what at arm's length, I started edging heavy weapons in red, support weapons in blue, command figures in yellow, just so they really stand out and you can see them. Yeah. But to be honest, I haven't been doing that recently. I just do everything black because I think black helps it just to fade into nothing on the table more than any other colour would, so you don't really notice the edge so much. And it's just become a habit that I do now.
Yeah, I must be with the Men of Bronze stuff, because they're on flat MDF rounds. I just leave them as they are. Because you get that sort of blacky, browny, laser cut colour. But for the GW bases, which are sort of 2 or 3 mil high, I think they're 3 mil high. I think if you put like black on it, it's too strong, so I tend to do like a browny colour. So I tend to use like a tan colour. Mm-hmm. It depends on what the base is. If I do like an urban base, I'll do them grey.
I painted some figures once and posted them online, as you do. And when I paint my bases, I do the brown main coat, and then I do a sienna, I think it is, dry brush, and then follow it up with a white or an off-white top dry brush on there. And it flicks around the edges sometimes. And I posted the pictures before I'd painted the edge, and I got complimented on the edge of the base. Somebody actually said, "That looks really good. How did you do that?"
Yeah,
that's a happy accident. I hadn't finished it.
Yeah, I guess I tried to get the side of the base to blend in with the colour of the actual base itself.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah,
I don't like scruffy edges of bases. I know a lot of people put flock that either goes around the edge either by design or accidentally. I like to keep it neat.
Yeah.
Is that a bugbear?
No, yeah. I mean, it bugs me enough when you get the point where you suddenly discover that after you've sanded your bases, you go back to them and suddenly discover that a bit's a bit's gone over the edge, and it's
It always
like,
comes off.
you know, and
Have to
yeah,
take-
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that bugs me. That bugs me no end. But yeah, no. I mean, I'm the same. I black edge my bases.
Yeah.
But
It does look effective, black edge bases.
But I just wondered. I just wondered what sorts of base edges you were. The other, you said you did various things. Because on some of your some of your Mythic Battles stuff recently, you've been using the old Games Workshop technical paint, haven't you?
Mm.
The Crackle paint.
Yeah, I've used those quite a few times on some of my Conan stuff and the Mythic Battle stuff. Yeah, it's basing. I think if you're doing sort of like one-off figures and stuff, then you can play around a bit. It's only when you sort of do an army you want them all to be the same.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, because I haven't. I mean, as a little question on that is because I haven't decided. I haven't yet committed to how I'm going to base my stuff for Journeys in Middle Earth. Spoiler alert. It's two minds. It's either I use my traditional method or I try the was it Agrellian Earth or whatever it is for the first time. I haven't used it before, and I'm kind of in two minds of which way to jump.
Is that the one that crackles?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite good. I've
Yeah.
used that before. You have to put on quite thick.
Yeah.
But it's very good. Are you going to be using those figures for anything else, or just for that game?
That's an excellent question because
It doesn't really matter if they're all based the same. It's fine. I mean, I don't get hung up on basing as long as the figures are the same type of base the same. I got no problems having figures based differently.
That's a good point, actually. It doesn't really matter, does it?
No.
I mean, as I say, it's a case of, and of course, there's just that thing in the back of your mind that, when you haven't done something before, and you know that you're kind of like the standard way that you do something, you kind of got your method down pat and it works and it produces a decent result. All of a sudden it's like, I'll try something different. Do I really want to go down that route, or do I just play it safe?
Try it on a spare base.
You don't get spare bases in Lord of the Rings.
You're telling me you've got no spare bases at all anywhere? You haven't got any little round bases?
I might have the odd one.
Iliad? There you go.
Bags full.
Slap it on one of them and see what you think of it. Play around.
I might have had the odd one or two 9-litre boxes full of them.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, there we go.
Try different colours underneath as well, because remember the crack will show through. So if you got black underneath, it'll show the black. So, I did Persephone, which is the Queen of Hades. So I painted the whole base yellow, and then put, I think it was that crackly earth colour bound one on top. So the yellow showed through in all the cracks, and then I gave it a yellow wash. So play around with it. Get half a dozen bases.
You could have dry brushed it black and had a sort of lava effect.
Yeah, exactly.
If that's what you wanted.
Yeah. I just thought I'll slap some yellow, slap different washes on there. Put a bit of yellow, bit of red. Grab 6 bases and have a play.
Nobody notices when you've covered it in flock afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. Cover the whole thing in flock and it's great.
Yes, it all disappears. Yes. Thank you. So, Mr. Plowman, what have you been up to recently?
What have I been up to? I think I mentioned a lot of it previously. Actually, I played Mansions of Madness with Mr. Hobbs and Co. over at Matt's, just around the corner. I've played Black Ops with my friend Paul in York, who you may know from Operation Market Lardham. And Men of Bronze I've played a couple of times. So that's my gaming. I've been doing a bit of painting. I've been painting some goblins for Fenris Games. He's asked me to paint a few of those for him. And
sorry. You've been asked to paint by a manufacturer to paint some goblins for them.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the aforementioned underplaying your painting skills, is it?
Well, he liked it. So yes, I'm doing a few dozen of those for him. I'm quite pleased with them actually. They're quite nice.
Mm-hmm.
I've got half a dozen to do now, so they'll be off to him soon. I'm painting some 15mm sci-fi figures for Kurasan miniatures. Can't say an awful lot about those. He's asked me to be quiet about them. Certainly, he's asked me not to show them off online before he releases them. But I've got some infantry. I think they're called the RNA Ferox, and they're sort of Spider-Man hybrid type things. Lots of eyes, and some nice armor, and a couple of gorgeous vehicles to go with them. Sort of grav propulsion vehicles, an APC and a tank, which obviously I can't show you. But yeah, they're nearly done as well. And then I'll be back painting my own stuff when that's all gone. So that's what I've been painting.
Cool.
I told you it was good.
Yeah, so this is the bit that when you get somebody, you get manufacturers asking, "Oh, would you mind just painting these figures for me, so so I can display them on my website or what have you?" You can't be that bad a painter, man.
I'm happy with what I do. I've painted. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So,
Your turn.
me. Right. My turn. Right, okay. What have we been doing? Ooh, played a couple of board games. Played a game that's another game that has been sat on Mr. Luff's shelf for donkeys. A game called Ys, Y-S, Ys, which is it's kind of like a worker placement commodities trading game. It sounds really weird, but basically you're playing gem traders, and the idea is to kind of collect stuff so you can get gems, and at the same time you're attempting to influence the cost of various colours of gems in the gem market. So basically, at the end of the game, the collection of gems that you've got is worth the most victory points. Interesting. It's a good 10, 12 years old. But yeah, it was an interesting game. Quite enjoyed that. Played Mansions. However, we were playing the Horrific Journeys expansion, and we were playing the third of the Horrific Journeys expansion. This is the one that takes place on the cruise ship, and it was an absolute blast. It introduces a couple of extra things that Mansions hasn't had before. So first off, and this is the spoilers because this is just like how it happens. You start off. There is you are performing an investigation, and you're in the cruise ship, and you happen to be in the bowels of the ship when there is an explosion. So you start off coming to just outside the engine room, and the entire place is on fire.
Right.
And that's how it starts. You all kind of come to, it's like, okay, he goes, right, okay, so you come to, and you're all in this area, and you look around, and basically it's the interior of an engineering deck, and it's like, and it's on fire.
Ooh, that's nasty in that game.
Yeah, that's not good.
We had a bit of fire.
So that's how it starts. So it's a little bit like, well, I mean, other than the fact that the ship isn't upside down, it's a little bit like the Poseidon Adventure mixed with the Titanic. However, at the same time, it has a traitor mechanic in it. Because one of the party, this is interesting because basically you actually get cards, and this is an interesting one because you actually have to put stuff into the screen when nobody else is looking. So it probably works best if you have it on tablet, so you can just pass the tablet around to people. But yeah, so basically there is a possibility that either none, one, or more people in the party are actually Deep One hybrids. And go.
Yeah.
whole idea is you've got to rescue as many passengers as possible and get off the ship.
Oh, do you?
Or do you?
I like that.
Indeed. And also try and find out what on earth is going on. So yeah, that was an absolute stunning game. That was brilliant. I can highly recommend it. It's the third scenario from the Horrific Journeys expansion. Any more than that is spoilerific, but because all that you find out in the initial setup. But no, it was stunningly good. It was really well impressive. Yeah, I love that game. I do anyway.
Mm-hmm.
The other game I've been playing a lot of, funny enough, is the aforementioned Journeys in Middle Earth. Played 5 scenarios of that now with Josh, because it does seem that the scenarios are short enough that actually, within a gaming session, like a 3 hour ish gaming session, you can just about squeeze a couple of games in. Especially when one of the games takes place on the battle map, which is the kind of the smaller map, smaller kind of tactical map, for want of a better phrase. So, really enjoying that. Kicking our arse, something chronic. I mean, we played 5 scenarios, we've won 1 of them. But of course, it's the game just keeps going.
Yeah.
It's just a case of, you don't gain as much experience as you could if you won. And then obviously there are consequences of you losing the game. And even now there's discovering there are different styles of game. So there are exploration games, there are battle games. One of the games happens actually to be an investigation. It's you have to find out who the spy is. That comes up quite early in the campaign, so it's a I think it's scenario 4. So I think it's one that's kind of you will hit fairly early. But I'm not saying anything else. But other than the fact, it's a different style of scenario. So there are so within the game there are certainly different things you can do.
It's just in a similar way to Imperial Assault does the skirmish game and the sort of the other version of the game where you're going through corridors and rooms and such like.
Not quite. It's all app driven. It's just that what you have either the exploration tiles, so it's like an exploration board, which is kind of, I suppose, for want of a better phrase, that's kind of like a zoomed out view.
Right.
And then you have what they call battle boards, which, so for example, in one particular instance, right, so the first scenario is, you have to find, originally you're looking for a hideout of a den of thieves.
Uh-huh.
And it ends up leading you to an encampment, and then in the second scenario you're having to raid the encampment, and that takes place on these they call them battle boards. So basically they're 2 kind of 12, 18-inch square boards with just like a set number of areas on them, and that actually has like terrain markers that are placed in. So you could actually 3D the whole thing up, but the bushes and rocks and walls and various other bits and pieces. So you could actually.
But it's just that the scenario throws that at you. It's not that you choose to do that sort of game.
No, the scenario. It's like, this scenario comes up next. So no, it's not like Imperial Assault in that sense. Although. Oh, that was the point. Yeah, we have played some. I can't remember if I said we have played. We've been playing Imperial Assault with the app, and
mentioned it last time.
Yeah, and funny enough, the app Imperial Assault did a similar sort of thing, whereby we were wandering around the map, and it used it as a zoom out, and when you went in, and basically you had to raid 3 Imperial facilities, and each time you went into a particular area, you then kind of zoomed in and created another little map where you had to go and do, you had to go and get to a console and do something or what have you. So the app version of Imperial Assault is doing a similar thing. But no,
Okay.
this is. But no, the as I say, the Journeys game takes place effectively at 2 levels, but it's different from Mansions in the fact of it's linked scenarios into a campaign. So you don't go, right, I want to play scenario 2 or scenario 3. It's like, okay, on to the next thing.
Mm.
You're dealing with whatever's coming at you, and I know it's there's there were forks in the campaign there, so depending on whether you win or lose, and all certain things happen, and there are random events that can create side quests and what have you. So there's a lot of stuff going on. It's quite so although it's similar to Mansions, it's different.
Yeah.
It's a bit like, and Mike will get this. It's something I actually talked about on the latest Secret Diary of a Wargamer, available to patrons. But I was talking about it's like the difference between Lord of the Rings, the card game, and Arkham Horror, the card game. Sorry, Arkham Horror, the card game. Arkham Horror, you have a series of scenarios and it carries on. Whereas in Lord of the Rings card game, you just play a scenario. And it's a similar sort of thing, comparing that to with Journeys in Middle-earth and Mansions of Madness. It's just the other way around.
Right.
If that makes any sort of sense.
I think so.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So Journeys. So yes, playing a lot of Journeys in Middle-earth, liking that a lot. Now, Mr. Hobbs, you made a comment about Journeys in Middle-earth.
I did.
On Twitter,
Mm.
which I was going to, and you said, and you ended up going, save it for the podcast, Neil. So I'll ask you a question, because you turned around and said, it's a great exploration game. I'm not quite sure how Middle Earth it is.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
I think it's the characters in there. As a game, I really enjoyed it. I love the way the app works. I love how you investigate around, you search around, you do stuff. It's the right level of exploration and combat. There's clues thrown in. Great fun. But for me, it just didn't. You could use any characters in there. It would have felt the same. It was sort of missing that Lord of the Rings or Middle Earth Tolkien-esque sort of style. I think it's a hard one to put your finger on, but it just didn't feel.
Well, your foot's the size of most people's fingers too.
That is true. Yeah, it just didn't feel like a Lord of the Rings game. It felt like a generic fantasy game where they tried to bolt on a Lord of the Rings skin.
So what would make it more Lord of the Rings?
I don't know. That's the problem.
Where and when is it set in Middle Earth? Is that part of it?
It doesn't really say. And
Okay.
the problem is there's 6 characters you can use. 2 of them are not in the book, so they're made up, even though it's Lord of the Rings and everything's made up.
Oh, there's precedent for that in films and such like that.
Yeah. So you got two made up characters. But then you've got Aragorn, Gimli, Legolas, and Bilbo as the other 4 choices.
Now, one of those stands out a bit to me as an unusual character to add into that mix. Legolas, Aragorn, and Gimli, you can sort of appreciate they know each other, they're friends, that's fine, they've got history. Bilbo didn't do an awful lot of adventuring after his big one, did he?
Well, actually, when I sort of thought about it, I thought Gimli was the one who stood out because he spent his early life he was born in the Iron Hills and then went to the Lonely Mountains, didn't he?
And then
stayed there.
Yeah,
and then went down to Rivendell.
Okay, so...
But I think it's that. It's.
Do you have the same problem with the Lord of the Rings card game?
No, I don't. And that's the weird thing. And I think it's probably there's so many other characters you can play in the Lord of the Rings card game.
But most of them are still characters in the book.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind if they used characters from the book. If they used characters in the book that were together in a period of, if they try to set it in a set period of time. There are loads of great characters in the book. That are not. It's almost like they sort of sat down and thought, right, okay, we've got 6 characters. Well, we got our asses kicked, handed to us because we didn't allow people in Imperial Assault to play Luke and Vader. So let's just use those 4 heroes. It's like, we need to have a burglar, someone will use Bilbo. We need to have a captain who'll use Aragorn. We need to have somebody who can shoot who'll have Legolas. And we need to have a warrior who'll have Gimli. It's almost like they try to push them in. And, and that's it. And I say, it's a great game. I really enjoyed playing it, but I just couldn't get over the fact that we had these four characters who, would never have gone off and doing little adventures together because, but when the 3 of them were together, they were a little bit busy, what with the fellowship and stuff.
And it sounds like it sounds like you're starting off just infiltrating some bandits, did you say, Neil? So it's like quite low key stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first night. Now, you see, the thing is, this is a similar. Okay, it can be a similar sort of argument to playing the Lord of the Rings card game, and I think it's kind of set around about the same time. So basically, it's set after the events of The Hobbit, but before the events of the Fellowship.
Which is a very short time scale, and
Yes. So the card game uses that, and then you've got basically you're wandering around all the various areas of Middle Earth, doing what have you, and so you've got. I mean, it's like so in the core set, in the core set, you've got it. I've got to remember them. What? So it is Gimli, Legolas, Aragorn, Eowyn.
Findle's in there. Faramir. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, and then all the major characters come out. Plus you get some other ones. So, for example, Beravor, who is in Journeys in Middle Earth, is a character from the Lord of the Rings card game. She's not in the book. She's a made-up character from the Lord of the Rings card game. Is it Eleanor?
Yeah.
Is it Eleanor or Lena? Is a character that they have created for Journeys in Middle Earth, and she's basically like a bard. She's an elven bard, for want of a better phrase. Musician class. But I mean, all the classes are interchangeable, so you can play different classes at different times depending on what you want to do. So I must admit that doesn't bother me, but having said that, that was because I saw that they were basically doing exactly the same as they did in the Lord of the Rings, the card game, and it didn't really bother me there either. I mean, I know, for example, when we played The Hobbit. And our adventuring party included Gimli. Somebody was, I know we were talking about this, and somebody was complaining massively about it, going, he wouldn't be there, which is kind of true. But, there's a certain conceit involved. But no, I kind of get your point, because it's like, you're taking characters and using them out of context from how they fit in the lore. And in the historical events of the books,
and there were so many other characters in there that they could have used. I mean, the first campaign is set in Arna, which is it's just north of the Shire, it's the northeast of Middle Earth. This is where the Rangers were keeping a track of the borders of the Shire. So. They could have made up 6 characters there. They could have used a couple from the book because there were Rangers who were mentioned in Lord of the Rings who travelled down to meet up with Aragorn and became his sort of men-at-arms bodyguard type of thing.
It's not a million miles from Rivendell.
Yeah, so you could have
some stretch to come from Mirkwood across the mountains, but you got the elves at the Havens that could have come across. Those characters they could have used.
Yeah, and sort of say, right, these characters, we're in Arna now. So this is whole campaign in there. And they could have dropped in Aragorn, sort of popping in one of the scenarios. They could have dropped in Legolas quite easily. Because Legolas, he was in Mirkwood.
So basically, you'd have been happier with the same approach that they took with Imperial Assault.
Yeah.
Whereas you're playing, for want of a better phrase, more generic characters. So you're playing a character type, but you're not playing the actual heroes. because they're busy doing
Yeah.
other things.
Yeah, that. And I love the idea that they've got the professions in there. Where, you can you basically choose a character and you choose your profession for that scenario. Love that idea.
Yeah.
But I think,
and I tell you, that comes into its as you start progressing. That really comes into its own, because that's obviously how you start sorting through all your skills and expanding your character. And when you start playing, when you effectively start multi-classing, and you start building your deck with different cards, different card abilities from different classes. That's brilliant. It's really cool.
So here we go. So I'm not dissing the game because I really enjoyed playing the game. I just think it was a little bit lazy. Okay. I think they just
I just wanted to know, because I was going to chat with you about it, and kind of, anyway, no, let's save it to the podcast. Yes. I wanted to know, and especially when you kind of went, it just didn't quite feel quite Middle Earthy, and I thought, well, what will make it more so? Anyway, by the by, so that's a slight digression, but it's a conversation that I wanted to have, and I'm sure we can go into it at greater length. Probably when at some point we'll probably end up doing a mini review of the game or something. Although we probably included one there, but there we go. Anyway, the other thing I've been doing, as anyone who's been following me on Twitter and the blog over the last weekend, what on earth possessed me to make it public? Because I've been abandoned for the week for Mayday, for the Mayday weekend. I had a couple of choices. I could have decided that I was going to go out gaming somebody and contacted someone and said, okay, I've got several days to do gaming, or I thought, let's give myself a painting challenge. And because of Journeys in Middle Earth, I went, tell you what, I want to try and paint the entire model set in a weekend. Or a long weekend, and then decided that I was going to blog about it, and then which meant that all of a sudden people are following you and taking an interest in what you're doing, which is both a good and a bad thing, especially when somebody turns around and says, "I'll tell you what, mate, if you finish it, I'll make a donation to combat stress." I was like, "Oh right, thanks, Mike. No pressure." Let's be fair. Let's put it out there. Mr. Hobbs is a hero. He kept his word, and he has made it. And following my success or lack thereof of completing, he very, very kindly made a donation to combat stress. So applause for
done,
Mr. Hobbs. Thank you, sir.
That was you. You did brilliant.
Yeah,
you got more than I thought you would.
So how many figures were there, Neil?
Okay, there are 31. There are 31 figures in the game. There are 25 enemy figures and 6 heroes. Over the space of the so I started on the Friday evening, and by Monday evening, I'd got all the enemy painted, which is 3 wargs, 6 goblins, 3 each of 2 different types of orc, 3 whites, and a hill troll. Doesn't sound a lot when you say it like that. And then there are the 6 character figures, and I'd kind of got 3/4, 2/3 of the way through the first character figure. I lost some time. I mean, I lost a fair bit of Sunday because I had a couple of other commitments that I had to do on Sunday, and then lost a few hours on Monday evening because to do things like family coming back from their weekend away and catching up with them, sort of thing. But so 25.5 figures, which on the whole,
it's excellent.
I was disappointed I didn't manage to achieve to finish it. I mean, interestingly enough, since then I've finished Legolas, I've finished Aragorn, and I'm 90% through Be'lakor, 50% through Bilbo and about 30% through the other two. So I reckon that by even painting in the shorter bursts, by the end of the week I should get everything painted, and then it's just a question of baiting it all. But on the whole, I was pretty pleased.
It's pretty good going, though. I mean, that's almost a Norman Cavalry squadron's worth.
Nicely done, sir. Nicely done.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, when you think of it like that, it's like, well, hang on a second. Considering I've only, I've been painting, and even for me, this year has been, massively out. Well, I painted more figures this year already than I painted the whole of last year, and that was even before I started this bit. I painted more in a weekend than I have in most of the month for the last 4 months. So I've got to be pleased. It has kind of highlighted to me how slow a painter I am. But on the whole, I really enjoyed it. I hated painting the Orc Marauders because I must admit I don't like the figures. The figures I think for the Orc Marauders are pretty poor, actually. I think they could have done so much more with them. And so I think the figure pose they chose was just horrible. I don't know why they did it, especially because they have so much card art from the Lord of the Rings card game, and there are so many different there are so many cards of orcs and stuff that they could use had use of inspiration, and they chose something like that. And it's like, really? Having, on the flip side, the hill troll is, as soon as you saw the figure, it's like, that's this card, which is I think it's called the Relentless Hill Troll. So I tell you what, I will actually try and use the similar colour scheme, and that was great fun to paint, and that didn't take me that long. That probably took 2 or 3 hours for me, which is not bad going for me, and came out. I was really pleased with it, and when you consider at the end of the day, all it was just get your nice solid base colours, put a few details in, and then it was a soft tone wash. And it went bang, because they're quite kind of stylized figures. Would you say, Mike? Yeah, they are a bit stylized. They do have kind of exaggerated folds in the cloth and all that sort of thing. So washes work really well with them. And I just thought, what, they're gaming pieces. If they work, and I used the 3-foot rule, and I went, I'm not going to go to town on them. I'll try and make a decent job, and I was really pleased with the way they came out. I must admit, on the whole, so I was disappointed with a couple of them, but on the whole, I was chuffed at the end of the day.
I must admit, I haven't looked at them since you finished them. I must go and have a look now.
See, technically, they're not finished because I haven't based them yet, and of course, we all know what a difference a base makes. So at the moment, they're looking at them kind of going, yeah, they look all right. And I know for a fact, because I see it so often, that once you put the base on the figure, and you finish off the base and you put it up, and it does change the way the figures look. So I'm holding back final judgment until I do the basing, but I just kind of wanted to do all the basing together because it's such a pain. It's such a pain in the neck. I find it, doing it in small batches. So I thought, what, I'll just finish everything and then I'll just do it all together.
Cool.
Excellent.
Well, we've talked about that for far too long. The ones so, crikey, we've got a game review to do, guys. Oh, so right, let's get out of here, and we will come back and we're going to chat about Hellenistic mass battles.
Ooh.
The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is very proud to be sponsored by Firestorm Games, one of the largest hobby retailers in the country, with branches located at Victoria Road, Swindon, Tesco's in Newport, and the South Wales Gaming Centre, Trade Street, Cardiff. All the store locations offer areas for playing of board and card games. In addition, the Cardiff Centre offers the Battlefields, which not only provides over 60 tables for the playing of miniature games, but can also provide terrain for a number of different sci-fi, fantasy and historical settings. And don't forget, listeners to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast can attain an added discount at the Firestorm store and web store by using the discount code Mayday Meeple. That's Mayday Meeple, all lowercase. Check them out at www.firestormgames.co.uk. So here we are in the main part of the show, and as I say, so last time when we were talking about Hellenistic warfare, we had a look at a couple of skirmish games, but somebody sitting not too far away from us, would potentially argue that what on earth is a skirmish game doing in Hellenistic warfare? Is that the case, Mr. Plowman?
I think there's not a lot of historical precedent for it once you get into the classical age, certainly. Yeah, the battles were bigger. Not a lot of skirmishing going on with a couple of dozen men, I would argue. Not that I'm putting myself up as any kind of expert, but from what I've read, that seems to be the case.
Maybe they just didn't mention them. You know.
It's probably quite likely, yeah.
Yeah, they didn't mention them. Yeah. Don't say it didn't exist. We bought the game.
It's like, what you mean to say we've fallen for the marketing again? Don't. Right. Okay. So this time round we have Mr. Plowman championing the cause of big battle Hellenistic warfare, and we're coming at it from the point of view of as we've already mentioned, a recent set of rules, which we're going to look at in some depth, and then maybe references to some others as well. So, Ralph, what have you got for us for a Greek mass battle?
I've got the latest Osprey war game, number 24, Men of Bronze, by Eric Farrington. And this, Eric has put some designer notes in there. He said he always wanted to make a classical Greek military war game. And he had a series of rules he tried to write, and nothing quite worked. So he's definitely setting it up to be a big mass battle game. And he drew a lot of influence for it from some of the earlier Osprey war games. Particularly, he mentions Dan Mersey's games. And you can see there are traces of maybe Dux Bellorum and some of the Lion Rampant mechanics in there. And this may lead to a few of the problems that there might be with the game in terms of whether it is a skirmish game or a mass battle game. But the author's intent was for it to be a mass battle hoplite game.
Okay. So, do you want to give us an idea of the basic stuff? What sort of scale? Because you say it's difficult to say whether it's a skirmish game or a mass battle game. So, how sort of units put together? What size table do you need? How many figures? That sort of stuff. Just to give us an idea of what you get.
Okay. Yeah. Well, he's very fluid about the number of figures you can have in a unit. It's a unit game. You have a number of units. He's play tested the game with 10 28mm figures in a unit, and he arranges them for the regular troops in 2 ranks of 5. And he says you can play it with any scale. 15mm figures on 40mm wide bases, which is what I've been playing it with, or whatever. What you need is to know what a base width is. The game runs on base widths for measurements. So he's got 25mm bases, so base width is 25mm. When I got my 40mm bases with 4 figures on, the old DBA army, it was clear that I didn't want to use the whole width of the element, the whole unit, because that's not what he's doing in the rules. So I used the width of one figure, so I essentially used a centimetre as a base width. And therefore, where his games and all the scenario he's got are on 6 foot by 4 foot tables, I've reduced it down to 72 centimetres by 48 centimetres. So it's quite a small area in 15mm. Now, in terms of the number of units you've got, he's got a few army lists in the book. And then, so you can choose how many units you have to make up your army. You can have it as big as you want. But the sample armies he gives are curiously set to 38 points. You have 38 point forces, and they're quite small. Most of the sample armies are between 5 and 8 units. And in the historical battles, there's an army that's only got 2 units, which is quite unusual for a mass battle game. That was the Battle of Sphacteria, where a small Spartan army were beset by a load of Athenians, mainly light troops. So I think the idea is you've got 2 small, tough units against a load of light troops that aren't so tough. So it kind of works in that context. So what you're looking at is a game that's actually, when we played it in 15mm, was smaller than a DBA battle.
That's cumbersome.
It's not bad going at all, is it?
Yeah.
We're going to try it in 28mm next, so that we'll have the same size units as he did on a big table to see if it makes a lot of difference. But to be honest, yeah.
Can I just ask a question a second? Because I'm interested when he turns around and says, so he's saying it's a unit game, but the distance is based on the base size of an individual figure.
Yes, because the photos of his figures that are throughout the book are just 10 figures put together as a unit, and it's the individual base that he uses for the standard unit of measurement.
As opposed to an element front.
Yes, what you would have otherwise, given the ranges and the movement of particularly the cavalry, if you use the whole width of the unit, they'd be going across the table in a couple of turns, and it would be ridiculous.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure. And when you say it's element-based, does it include casualty removal, or is it a whole element?
No, there's no casualty removal. It's whole element removal.
Cool. Yeah, I was just trying to get why on earth, if he's basically using elements, how he gets to the point of using the base width of a single miniature. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. By the way,
I think it's on his blog where he actually says if you're using 15mm figures on a 40mm frontage, then you can use the width of the frontage as the base width guide. But this was one of the first things I did when I played with Matt to decide how we were going to do that, because that's at odds with what he suggests with 28mm figures, where he clearly says it's the base of one figure.
Yeah.
And the distances are all so distorted. You know, we could have got, we were shooting way too far. We were moving, all the way across the table in a couple of turns. It didn't seem to work. So we reduced the frontage to essentially the width of a single figure.
I can see that, because if you're...
We just made it proportional.
If you got 5 figures on 25mm bases, that's, just say, your movement measurement is 25.
Yeah.
So, but your element would be
125.
25, yeah. So 12 centimeter wide base, or elements really.
So your unit is 5 base widths wide.
Yeah. But I'm kind of guessing that, so say you can fire, say, 10 base widths, which would be 25 centimeters. If you did that on the base side of 40, you'd be firing 200 millimeters. So yeah, it's yes. I get it now. Right.
Yeah.
So it's an element game. There's no figure removal, which is always good. Do you have sort of formation changes? Is that why he went for single figures?
Yeah, I think so. There are only two formations. Everybody's essentially in open order, and all of the units can move and do everything in open order. You have to be in open order if you go across terrain. But if you've got the special rule phalanx, which funnily enough the hoplites do, it means at a cost you can form up into phalanx formation, and that's the only other formation in the game. When you're in phalanx formation, you can only go straight forwards, and phalanx gives you a bonus in combat, and it gives you a bonus to your armor, and it's quite significant. It makes a big difference fighting in phalanx formation to open order. There's another special rule called drilled, which allows phalanxes to move sideways and backwards, but only by 1 or 2 base widths. It's really not a lot.
Yeah. Does the formation itself change?
Not with ours, because ours were on elements, so I just had a little token to show it. But yes, you are supposed to have the figures a little way apart in open order, and then when they go into phalanx formation, you put them into base-to-base contact in those 2 rows of 5.
Okay, so you get a compression. But
Yeah, they just line up so you can see what's going on, which is a bit like when you go into shield wall in line rampant, I suppose, isn't it? You square them up and you tidy everything up.
Yeah. Okay. So, anything else you need? Any funky dice or dice bags available from Saddle Foods?
Dice bags you always need, obviously. The game uses standard D6, and you can be rolling a few of them. I think at times we were rolling maybe 10 dice in a big combat. So not a huge amount. It's not a buckets of dice game, I wouldn't say generally, but it is all on D6. So the small modifiers you get can become quite significant. And generally you're rolling multiple dice and you're looking for 4s and above to succeed. Tokens you need to show when you're wavering. In our case, when you go into a phalanx formation, and to show the amount of courage you lose, which is the sort of health of a unit. When you run out of courage, you rout. So we just use micro D6 to show how much courage a unit had. I think the most a unit ever had at the start of the game was 5. So it's easy to keep track of.
Yeah, it's sort of fairly classic stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so we've got our armies. We've got our
other stuff.
We got our other stuff. We got some tape measures and stuff. We know we're going to be playing on this size table with a bit of scenery on it. So setup, is this sort of scenario based?
Yeah, there are a number of scenarios in the back of the book. I think there are 6 scenarios. The usual sort of thing: decisive battle, ravage the countryside, stop them from escaping, desecrate the sacred, ambush, and decisive battle. So the same one there twice, actually. There are 5 scenarios. And they go through where you set up any special rules and how you win. And it's pretty standard stuff. I mean, the decisive battle is obviously you line up opposite each other and go to it. While I played with Mark last night, we had desecrate the sacred, where there was a ruined temple in the middle, and the attacker had to occupy that. And you don't know how many turns you have to occupy it for until you get in there, because you don't realise how much you have to desecrate it until you get there. So that was just a nice little twist. There are complications. So when you've decided which scenario you're going to play and you've set up the terrain, it's a very straightforward system for setting up the 1 or 2 pieces of terrain that you need. You roll for complications, and that's a 2d6 roll. And that could be things like bad omens, attack at dawn, dusty, herd of goats, the usual stuff. For example, bad omens. Before the battle, each unit makes a discipline check, and you need a 4+ target number. If you pass, you'll fight as normal. If failed, the unit will suffer the effects of bad omens, which means all your discipline checks for the rest of the game have a target number of 5+. So it's just little things that can cause problems for you. The herd of goats is nice. I'm going to have to get myself a little stand of goats, but they sit in the middle of the table and move at random and cause problems for you.
Are they always there?
Only if you roll. What do you need for the herd of goats? If you roll a 10 on the 2d6 as a complication for your battle, then you'll have a herd of goats in the game.
Yeah, because phalanxes, they don't like goats.
They don't like goats.
They
They don't
no,
like getting in the way.
No.
No. So those are the random scenarios. They've got historical scenarios then, which are interesting given the scale of the game. They've got the battles of Marathon, Thermopylae, Plataea, Sphacteria, Leuctra, Cunaxa, and Chaironea. And they're small, as you would imagine. One of the bigger battles from the period would have been probably Plataea, where the combined Greek army met the Persians. And the Greek forces amount to 3 units of hoplites, one from Sparta, one from Athens, and one from the other city-states. And then a couple of units of Siloi and one of Peltas. So you've got 6 units for the Greeks. And the Persians have got elite infantry, a unit of Theban hoplites, cavalry, and 3 archers. So they're very small battles.
Yeah.
So the units are representing a lot of men.
Yeah, they really are. In Marathon, there are 3 units of hoplites against the Persian forces, 5 units of Persians. But I don't think, we'll get to this later, I don't think that's a bad thing. It's a small-scale game in that respect, and it plays quickly. So you could get 2 or 3 games in an evening. And given some of the rules, which I've gone backwards and forwards on as to whether it's a good idea or not, there's one rule in particular that could be problematic. I think it works in light of the fact that it's such a small-scale game. But I'll come on to that.
Wow, yes.
Okay.
Oh. Okay.
Mm.
It was a big battle. Big battle, not many units.
It represents a big battle, but there's not a lot of figures on the table. Yeah, particularly if you played in 15mm as we did. I think that probably heightened that because a hoplite phalanx for us was 4 15mm figures. It might look a bit better if there are 10 28mm
And
figures.
you're having a go at Mortal Gods, eh? 9 figures are not, yeah. Oh, well, yes.
That did kind of cross my mind, it has to be said, just slightly.
That's a good point.
Anyhow.
Physician, heal thyself.
So, shall we go and look at the turn sequence?
Okay.
So, how does it work?
Okay, there are 4 phases to a game, and the first one deals with the currency of the game and what the whole game is focused on, and that's arete points. Aretes are sort of a morale thing. It's in another game I've got. So it's a big thing in a lot of Greek battles. They talk about the arete. And you get an arete point for each unit in your army and 1 extra for the strategos, which is your general. So that means you're going to get between maybe 5 and 7 arete points. So the first phase, you calculate those. The second phase, you bid for initiative. Then there's the activation phase and then the end phase. So the second phase, bid for initiative, very straightforward. You put a number of your arete points in your hand and simultaneously reveal them. Whoever's got the most takes the first turn. If it's a tie, you get the opportunity to add more if you want to. And if you can't break that deadlock, you just roll a d6 each, and the highest goes first. But any arete points you bid are lost for that turn. And it's worth saying here that at the end of the turn, you'll lose any other arete points. You don't carry them over. So it's just for that turn. So you're constantly looking at what you need to do on the table, what needs arete points from that, and how many you're going to be spending.
So what else can you do with them?
You can do several things. You can charge. Normally when you activate a unit, you can move or fight or shoot. Now if you spend an arete point, you can get a unit to charge. It moves twice as far as normal, and it can fight when it makes contact. You can activate a special rule, and that can be things like a counter charge, or to go into phalanx formation, or to move and shoot if you're light troops, or to evade. A lot of the units have got these special abilities. If you want to use it, you need to spend an arete point. So, for example, the Siloi have got the special rule Skirmisher, which means they don't have to lose half their movement when they go through difficult terrain, but you have to spend a point to do that.
Right.
You can rally with an arete point if you get to wavering, but that counts as an activation, so that's all they'll do. You can re-roll one die once for each Arete point you spend. And the last use of Arete points, which is relevant to where we are in the rules with initiative, you can attempt to steal the initiative. So you bid a number of initiative points at the start, and whoever wins gets to activate one unit. And then at that point, the other player can attempt to steal the initiative if they want to. If not, the first player carries on activating their units until they run out. If you do attempt to steal the initiative, you pay your Arete point, you both roll a dice, and whoever wins, whoever rolls highest, keeps the initiative or gains the initiative and becomes the active player. And at that point, they then get to activate one unit that can't be challenged. And then from that point on, while they're activating the units, the other player can then attempt to steal the initiative again or from them if it changed. So you keep activating until you're challenged. So timing that is sometimes interesting. And sometimes it's maybe not worth bidding a lot of Arete points to gain the initiative at the start, because you could steal it with just 1 point after your opponent's activated a single unit. So timing that's interesting.
Yes.
So
So
it sound more complicated than it is. It's really quite straightforward. Whenever somebody gets initiative, they're guaranteed one activation.
yeah. But these Arete points they're basically a resource which you can use to sort of get yourself out of trouble a bit or try and pinch the initiative.
Yeah. So you can take control of the game at a key moment by trying to seize the initiative and start activating your units. If you didn't win the initiative at the start, or if you chose not to. And if you want your units to do things that they want to do. If you want your light units to move and shoot instead of just moving or shooting, spend an Arete point, they can move and then shoot. If they get charged by your opponent's elite hoplites, then you pay an Arete point and they can try and evade.
Yeah.
So you need to hang on to some, depending on where your troops are, of course, and what's happening around them.
So it's a single unit activation, and you do everything with that unit in activation?
Yes, they can do generally one thing. They can either move, shoot, or fight if they're already in combat, or they can do one of their special abilities, which could include charging or moving and shooting. I'm looking through the list of other special abilities. Generally, it's you can pursue. So if somebody evades, you can spend an Arete point to pursue them, to try and catch up with them. Counter charge is a good one, because if you do charge, you get the charging bonus of 2 extra dice. But if somebody pays an Arete point and counter charges, they meet you halfway, and then you're both deemed to be charging. You both get that bonus in combat.
Yeah, so say I've got the initiative. I say I've got my elite hoplites. I'm going to charge into some Siloi. They grab the initiative and evade.
Or they can just activate their special ability at that point. They don't have to have the initiative to do that. They can evade, because that's a special rule rather than an activation.
Get you. So if they then evade, if I've got another unit that's got pursue special ability, could they then activate and pursue in, or do I have to?
I think that's a unit. Well, your unit of hoplites, if your opponent evades, you would finish your move. So if you had any movement left, you may contact them yourself anyway. But if a unit's got, just trying to find the page for pursue. No, if a unit declares an evade, then units with pursue can choose to spend an Arete point to counter the evade by moving an additional 1d3 base widths after the evading enemy. So it has to be, I think, the unit that has been evaded.
Yes, that's get you now. Okay. Sounds interesting. So, anything special in movement, or is it just, if you're forward straight away, forward, otherwise you move any way you want?
The way he does, if you're in phalanx formation, you can only go straight forwards. You can spend an Arete point if you're drilled to move a little bit sideways or a little bit backwards if you need to. Otherwise, you're in open order. Now, the way movement and line of sight and shooting and everything like that is controlled is by the position of your leader. Now, the leader is the figure in the middle of the front rank. So where he's got his 5 figures in two ranks, it's the middle guy at the front. We just use obviously the middle point of the front of the unit. Now, historically, the leader of a unit, particularly of a hoplite phalanx, was at the front on the right. So that was something that I thought seemed a bit odd when I first read it, because it's not where the leader should be. But if you put the leader at the front on the right, because of the way movement works, it's odd. You move your leader any way you want. You can wheel him or move him straight ahead or back or wherever you want, and then the rest of the unit just forms up on him.
Okay, yeah.
So if you're wheeling right or left and your leader's at the front on the right, then the unit will sort of move further if they're wheeling right than if they were wheeling left, because you'd put all of the figures to the left of your leader.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see why they've done it. It's just a central point in the front of the unit that all measurements are taken from, and all line of sight are measured from there, and most ranges are taken from his figure as well.
Right.
So yeah, movement, you just move one figure and then form up. If you're, I think you've got to be within 2 base widths of another figure in the unit. So it's quite open and free flowing.
And then
moving through, there are 2 types of terrain. Oh, well, apart from impassable, which doesn't need any special rules really. You can have difficult terrain, and essentially all movement is reduced to half, and you can only cross that in open order. If you're in difficult terrain, you get an extra point of armor. And then dangerous terrain is the same as that, except if you cross dangerous terrain, you have to make a discipline check, and if you fail that, you lose a point of courage, which is actually what keeps your unit on the table. And there's no way to get courage back in this game. So if you move through too much difficult terrain, there's a chance that you could leave the table before you've done anything. I think that would be quite rare for that to happen. But it makes you think about dangerous terrain. And that's generally things with water. The examples of streams, rivers, shallow water, swamps, and also palisades. Most other things are just difficult terrain. So ruins, low walls, vineyards and woods.
Okay. So that brings us on to the classic It's a War Game. Combat. So my first, before you sort of go into the mechanics of it, I suppose the burning question with any element of the game is, if you got 2 elements that just touch, is there a full combat? Do you form up on the other unit?
This is where the game becomes, it gets a bit more abstract at this point. You shuffle up so that if you make contact, as long as your leader figure, or the point at which your leader is in contact with a unit, you shuffle your units around so that they're face to face and side to side. They're level with each other.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And what you can do in this, you can have supporting units. So if there's a unit whose leader is within 3 base widths of a friendly unit, you can choose to have them support that unit in the forthcoming melee, which is quite good. They add 2 attack dice to the unit that they're supporting, which is quite significant. But they suffer the fate of the unit that's fighting. If that unit routs, then the supporting unit will also rout. But what you do with a supporting unit, which is quite jarring when you first come across this, the supporting unit is moved to behind the unit that's in combat, wherever they are. So if they're to the side of the unit, but not in contact with the enemy unit, but they're within the 3 base widths of the unit, of your unit that's fighting, you'll pick them up and you'll put them behind the unit that's fighting. And that's quite a significant amount of movement sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I suppose if it's 3 base widths, that means
you've got to be quite close.
Yeah, you've got to be literally bang. You've literally got to be touching side to side of you. So it's almost like a unit to the side, right to the side of you, suddenly leaves.
Well, bear in mind you have to keep 1 base width between all units. It sort of harkens back to the Lion Rampant thing there, but it's only 1 base width. No unit, friendly or enemy, can come within 1 base width of another. So you're going to have a bit of a gap between them anyway.
Yeah. So if you're 1 base width.
Yeah. Which was something that I thought might be a problem. But when you think back to the scale of the game, if you think about that battle at Plataea, one unit is all of the Athenians, another one is all of the Spartans, another one is all of the other Greeks. So they kind of are already formed up in big phalanxes in what the unit represents.
Yeah. I can see that if you're behind a unit, it's almost like he's got his maths slightly wrong. You sort of say, because if you've got a 5-man unit and your leader's in the middle, that means there's 2 figures.
Yeah.
And then there's be a figure gap, and then another unit.
So that's your 3 base widths.
That's your 3 base widths, which means that if you're at the front, exactly 1 base width apart, you're going to leave the front and go behind.
Yeah. And leave a gap in the line. And all that goes with it. And that's not so bad if you think, well, that's a unit of Siloi that's going to come around and support your hoplites. But that could also be a unit of hoplites. And if you've got one on the other flank, you end up attacking in column rather than as a sort of side-to-side phalanx, which seems odd and made me think this is a bit weird, a bit daft.
Yeah, especially if you've only got three units of hoplites and you've got them close together, and suddenly they all come into a nice friendly column.
Do you know, that very point is the saving grace. That's what made us rationalise it last night when I played with Mark, because you think all of a sudden your phalanx is becoming narrow and it's going to muck up any other combats you've got going on nearby. But generally, you won't have many other combats going on nearby because those are your units. You may have another couple of units somewhere else on the table. There might be another one nearby. Chances are your enemy's going to have that supporting as well, and they'll go behind. So it just points out, I think, which units are supporting. It's like putting a marker down. It does change the shape of the battle, but that's quite abstract. It's just showing that this is where the battle is and this is the direction it's going in. And there's not a lot else going on the table because you haven't got a lot of other figures. There was an example, which is covered in the rules, we had last night where I'd had a combat with Mark and we were front-to-front contact. I then came in on the flank of Mark, and it says when that happens, you count the charge, you count the flank attack, and you can count the support from the unit that was previously fighting. So if you count the support, the unit that was previously fighting and the one behind it, because that's in 3 base widths, both go round to behind you. So now Mark had a unit facing the front with nobody facing him. I was attacking him from the side with 3 units all stacked up neatly behind each other, which seems very strange. But phalanxes didn't like getting hit in the side. It was usually a very bad thing that happened, and it was the start of the end. And this really highlighted the fact that they were getting attacked from the side. All of these other units were joining in that attack, and Mark was at a big disadvantage. So there was nothing else around because there were most of our phalanxes tied up in that. I think Mark did have a support, which stayed in support behind him. And it just illustrates the way the combat is going. If I'm attacking from the side and it's going to be really bad, it's a flank attack. So you can clearly see I get +2 for the flank attack. I clearly see I get +2 for each support. But it's a bit jarring. It feels odd initially, but you can justify it, I think. He doesn't actually. There are lots of other rules corroborate that, and that's definitely the way it works. We've checked back and forth umpteen times, thinking this can't be right, but it is. But he never explains his rationale for that.
Okay. Okay.
It's an odd one. But that's how you work out who's in combat anyway. What you do when you get there. Now, every unit has an attack value. And your elite hoplites could be 6, your Siloi could be 1 or 2, or your archers could be 1. That's the number of dice you roll. And again, you're looking for 4s, 5s, and 6s to score a hit. You get bonuses. You get, bearing in mind then the numbers range from 1 to 6, you get +2 dice if you're in phalanx, 2 if you charge, and 2 for each unit in support. If you're attacking from the flank, 2, and from the rear, 4. And that's it. That's the only bonuses you get. So it's quite straightforward and easy to remember. So we were rolling sometimes 6, 4 dice, sometimes 10, and you're looking for 4s and above. And what you do then with your hits, like in the Lion Rampant series, you compare them to the armor. So most units have got an armor of 1 or 2. So you would need 2 hits to do 1 point of courage damage to that unit. If a hoplite is in phalanx formation, they get an extra point of armor, which means then you've got to score 3 hits to do 1 damage to them. And that makes a big difference as well. So being in phalanx is really important.
And each damage reduces their courage by 1.
That's right. Yeah. And then that's not a problem until your courage gets down to 2, at which point you have to make a discipline check, or you become wavering. When your courage goes down to 1, you have to do it again. And when your courage goes to 0, you rout, which at this stage you just turn your unit round to show that they are going to rout. So if you fail a discipline check when you get low and you become wavering, you immediately go to open order if you're in phalanx. You can't use any special rules, and your target numbers are increased so that most rolls will need 5 or more, and you can't move unless you pass a discipline check. But to remove the wavering status, it's just you spend an Arete point as an activation.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's more of a problem if you become wavering after you've activated that unit, because you've got to wait for the next turn, remove the wavering status, and then you've got to wait for the following turn before you can activate.
Okay, that's fairly weird, isn't it? It's the trying to get them back into line.
Exactly. But that only happens, you've got a bit of to and fro. I say most units have got a courage of 4 or 5, so you've got a few hits before you get down to 2, and you have to worry about that. And there's one more step to fighting, which is the Othismos, determined pushback, and this is when the shoving started. So it's nice and easily done. Whoever lost the most courage gets pushed back a D3 base widths, and the opponent can either follow up, stand the ground, or move back a D3 base widths themselves. And that's combat in a nutshell. And it actually goes very quickly.
Yeah. No, that sounds good.
Is combat kind of pretty brutal from that sort of thing?
It can be. Your initial contacts, you sort of test the water, and you see you don't tend to do a lot of damage to each other because you've got this buffer before you start to check for discipline. And if you've been caught out by somebody charging you, you may take a bit more damage, and you need to get your other units over to help you support. So it becomes important then whether you decide to follow up and continue the combat and see it through, or if you want to back off and give yourself a chance to regroup if you attacked. Because when you attack, both sides essentially roll their attack dice against each other. So I will attack you with my full value, you'll attack me with your full value. We'll work out as if it was 2 separate combats almost, and see who does the most damage to the other player. And yeah, if a lot of units, you've never got a lot of units. If you get 3 hoplite phalanxes in the same battle, same melee, it can get quite brutal pretty quickly. And you tend to find that an army crumbles, because when you get to the end phase, you check for morale and then you check for collapse. So if a unit's routed, at this point they're still turned backwards. But any other units where the leader can draw a line of sight to that unit has to make a morale test, or they become wavering. And then when your army starts to collapse, when you've lost 25% or 50% or 75% of your army, or the Strategos' unit has routed, then each unit in the army has to make a discipline check, or they rout as well. So once you start to lose some units, you find you tend to crumble, which is kind of how it would have been.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you got a unit in support, you sort of stacked up in like a little column with one at the front fighting, the one behind you supporting. If the one at the front routes,
the one behind routes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's all eggs in one basket, and you may not have many eggs, which is. Sorry?
I fancy an omelette now.
Yeah, it is a very small scale game. As I say, in 28 mil, you'll have 10 figures in a unit on a 6x4 table, but they'll go just as quickly. You'll get your few melee units into combat. Your skirmishers probably won't do an awful lot of damage to a hoplite unit. Their armor's too strong, especially if they're in phalanx formation. But they'll see off the other light troops, and then you can try and get them back to support your melee troops, or to seize an objective, or do something like that. So their role is quite realistic in that sense. I like the way they work.
Yeah.
And it comes down to when the phalanxes clash and who's buckles first.
Okay. So to win the game, it's scenario objectives, or you sort of wait for the armies to collapse.
Yeah, pretty much. It's usually when one of the armies collapses. As I say, the one we played last night, I could have won it as the attacker by occupying the temple in the middle for a number of turns. I did get one unit into the middle. It didn't last there. The game really suddenly ended. I had a flank charge into Mark's general. The only way I could was by charging him with a unit of light troops, supported by 2 units of hoplites, which included my general, and that was something in the heat of battle I overlooked. His unit was on 1 courage point, and so were my light troops. So I thought, well, I only need to do 1, and his general's gone, and he only had 1 other unit left. So pretty much he'd be finished, as was the case. But what I didn't realise was I lost my light troops, so therefore I also lost my general's unit and the other hoplite unit. I still had, I think, 3 other units on the table, but because my general had gone and I'd lost, I think, 25% of my army, I had to make discipline rolls that I needed 5+. 2 of my remaining 3 units failed. Mark routed, and the table was left at the end of the game with 1 unit of Siloi on the table, which was mine. So they would have marched off and held the battle at the end of the game. That was what won it for me. So all of a sudden, everybody disappeared.
You know Siloi, eh?
They're there when you need them.
They are, yeah. Okay. So it's one of the Osprey games, so it's actually 64-page.
Yeah.
You know, so they're usually light and cheerful games to play.
They are, and there's a lot of full page illustrations which are really nice. There are what have we got? 4 pages dedicated to a nice historical section and a description of the troops. There's a couple of pages of designer notes at the back, and then with all the scenarios, the rules are very compact.
Okay, so what's good and bad about them? This is your time to be frank and honest.
There are a couple of areas where things aren't quite as well described as they could be. I think we've covered the support rule, which I'm still undecided as to whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I really thought initially it was a huge bad thing, and it was a bit of a game breaker. When I came away from the game with Matt after the first game, I thought I really had big hopes for this game, and I don't really like it. But, I promised Mark a game. I knew we were going to talk about it, so I thought I'd have another game at Mark's. And we sat and chatted about it for an hour before we played. We still got our 2 games in on the evening. And we reached that justification that because it's a small unit count, and this is really your main battle going on, it doesn't matter where they are. It shows where the battle is and what direction it's going. So that I'm happy with that now. I've justified that in my mind, and I don't think that's such a big deal breaker. The only other... Sorry, were you going to...
Yeah, I was going to say, is it because when you bought it that you thought it was going to be a game where, you've got a dozen units of hoplites following those nice long lines, and
yeah,
instead you got a very cut down.
Yeah, as well. I thought, even when I read the army lists or the suggested armies, and I thought, well, they're really small, but he's got army lists, we could make them bigger. And I thought, well, that's okay. I can have some big armies with a dozen units or more. But I don't think the game will handle that very well, because you'll get those anomalies and they'll matter. If you start moving troops from the side to the back, or from the flank to all the way around the other side of a unit, you could get, that's going to make a difference if there are troops nearby who are waiting to fight. Because you've only got a few, it doesn't matter, because the ones that are going to fight are generally involved. So it is a small game, and I don't think it would work with a lot of troops.
So is it a case that what you're trying to do in the game is to almost outflank your opponent, or get them in a position where when the big scrum happens, when everything folds in together into one big push, that you got your troops in a better place on the battlefield than his are.
I think so, yeah. And you can use your light troops to try and delay his phalanx troops. Generally, that means you need to defeat his light troops first. So you might want to refuse your phalanx. You might want to hold it back a bit and let him come to you, but send your lights forward. But then, of course, you risk his hoplites, who can still move relatively quickly in open order. And in open order, they could probably take out a unit of light troops without the need to form up as a phalanx. So it is quite a tactically involved game. It's the arete points. That's the good thing about the game, and that's what it all pins on. Correct use of your arete points. Whether you bid for initiative, whether you steal the initiative to get that move that you need to get into the right position, and how you use your special rules. If you've got enough left to remember that to go through that difficult terrain with your light troops, you need an arete point to do that quickly. So
it sounds tactical, which is interesting.
Yes,
not just a line up and bump into each other for half an hour until one side breaks.
Because that is the danger in this style, in this period of gaming, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It basically boils, everybody lines up, then it basically becomes charge and a shoving match.
I will say I haven't played the latest version of DBA, but when I played DBA with my Greek army, I was underwhelmed. It really is not the most interesting or fun of games. There's not a lot you can do with them. You line up, you roll a dice, you compare the number, you push back or you're destroyed. This gives you options, and it lets you use your light troops well, and it gives you enough light troops. I think other generic war games, shall we say, that cover a broad sweep of history tend to underplay the number of light troops present. And I think they were underreported, certainly in the ancient times. That doesn't mean they weren't there. They were cheap troops. They cost nothing. They'd turn up with rocks if they had to, and did. And there were lots of them. But the way they worked is how this game makes them work. They see off the enemy light troops. They chase them when they rout, or they get them to that position, and then they can come and just bother the enemy phalanx from the side, and support you in your attack. And I think that's good, and you get enough units to let you do that.
That does sound quite interesting. So, you mentioned that it's got the army that's in there for marathon. I haven't really covered sort of range combat, but I'm kind of guessing it's
exactly the same as melee combat. Essentially, yeah. You don't get so many bonuses to add, but each unit that can shoot has got a number of dice they throw and a range they throw. So for Siloi and Peltasts, they'll roll 3 dice at a range of 6 base widths, which isn't that far. You've got to get quite close. Archers and slingers roll 4 dice at 12 base widths, so they've got a good range. And their discipline is really low, so they tend to waver quickly. Their armor's low, so they get destroyed quickly. They've got armor of 1, so any hit they receive is a hit against their courage of 4, generally.
Yeah, I was sort of wondering how the Persian archers would
They'd outrange the Athenians.
Again, I'm just thinking of Marathon, because Marathon, the only reason the Greeks move forward so quickly was because they were getting pelted by...
And that's what they'd have to do. Yeah, they thinned out their line so that they could match them in width.
Yeah.
So the Persians have got a unit of drilled infantry, a unit of warband infantry, and 3 archer units. So they are mostly archer units. And the Greeks have only got 3 units of hoplites. So they've got an archer unit for each unit of hoplites, and then their drilled infantry and warband on top of that. But the archer units, they're not strong, as I say. They crumble so quickly.
Yeah.
And they're treated as skirmishers, and they can evade if they are charged. So yeah, the Greeks really do have to get across the table quickly. And what we found yesterday was, because the movement for a hoplite unit is about 6 base widths, and light troops are 7 or 8, even without cavalry, in 2 turns you're on your enemy and you're fighting. So there's not a lot of pre-battle shuffling and lining up and wondering where he's going to go. You can get across the table and get straight into it. And that's how we managed to get 2 games in last night, after about an hour of debating the rules and seeing what this support rule meant, and teaching Mark the rules as well.
Cool.
They're another little wrinkles. There's things like the discipline check you make when you've taken damage and you go down to 2 or 1 courage. You make a discipline check. You roll dice, which is somewhere between 2 and 4, and you have to get a number of successes equal to the number of courage you lost in the previous round of melee or shooting that caused you to take the discipline check. So if you take 2 hits, you need to get 2 successes on your discipline check. That's going to be tricky if you've only got 2 dice. But there are other situations, such as the morale and the crumble checks, where you need to make a discipline. And it says you make a standard discipline check. Well, you haven't necessarily taken any courage in the previous turn, so we don't know how many successes you need for those. It's not described anywhere. So that's a bit of an omission. There are some discipline checks you make relating to going into phalanx formation, and I think crossing terrain might be the other one, where it says, in this case, you need to roll a single success. But for morale and collapse checks, it doesn't say how many you need. We played it as if you need just the 1, and it worked very well.
Yeah, sounds fair. Okay. I mean, these are Osprey games, so they're available everywhere, only for about 12 quid.
Yeah, tops. You can probably get it cheaper than that a lot of places. It's you know what you're getting with Osprey in terms of physical product and where to get it.
Yes.
And obviously they're available electronically as well, being Osprey. Yeah.
I would imagine so, yes. If not now, then they will be. There's no QRS for it yet, but I'm sure that will come. Doesn't really need it. Once you've played a couple of games, there's not a lot of rules you need to remember. I keep a list of what you can use your Ariti points for, and the combat bonuses are very easy to remember. So I like them.
And that's all that matters.
Yeah, they're good. And Mark really enjoyed them, and we're going to play them again.
Cool.
Cool.
And I've got some 15mm Greeks and Persians.
Brilliant. Persians will come in useful. And Mark's got his 2 the strongest Greeks, which are on 12cm bases, which we realised is about how wide the author's units were. So we can play them 28.
Yeah, Mark's Greeks are lovely. They're the old, I think they're clip models.
Which ones?
I think they're old hinge clip models, his Greeks.
Oh, are they? Oh.
Yeah, the classic 25mm ones.
Oh, we'll have to go with those next.
Yeah, they're that. Right, okay, so that's interesting set of rules, it sounds like.
Worth a look if hoplite battles are your thing, but bear in mind they've got that level of abstraction. Yeah.
Yeah, as I say, and it sounds like that level of, whether you can get your head around that level of abstraction basically makes or breaks the game for you.
Probably, yeah. If you think of it as a quick play game, that might help.
Yeah.
Fast play game, yeah.
Right. But not content of doing one review, but we're also going to mention another set of rules that Ralph threw in our faces. Have a look at these.
Indeed.
This is another kettle of fish entirely. We won't go in depth on this one. We haven't got time.
No.
But give us an overview. Give us a taste.
Okay.
Something to whet our appetite.
This game.
What are they called?
They are called Hoplomachia. And they're about 15 years old now. 15 or 16 years old. And I've had them that long, waiting to play them. When I first got them, I tried out a few little parts of the rules with bases, with counters. I've never played a full game. They're a free download from The Perfect Captain, but he does ask that you make a donation to charity if you download them, which is fair enough. And it's a beautiful download. You get a lot of files. The graphic design on them is beautiful. There are lots of unit cards, and it's designed for hoplite warfare, as it should be. He's got he's of the opinion that because there's not a lot else to do with your hoplites, you can concentrate on the minutiae of what's going on. So to give you an idea of how many units there are in the game, we've got 13 different types of hoplite units.
Sorry, 13?
13 different types of hoplite units, distinct different types. There are 11 types of mounted units, cavalry, 2 different types of slinging units, 2 different types of archery units, 3 types of Siloi, 4 types of peltasts, and 5 early Achaemenid Persian units. So he really has gone into the detail with this one. Your hoplites range from the Spartiates, the classic Spartan hard, the really tough Spartans. You've got Laconian hoplites who were from the city-states around, who fought with the Spartans. And then you've got the Peloponnesian hoplites who were from places in the Peloponnese like Argos and Corinth and around there. Obviously, you've got Athenian, Boeotian, Ionian, Arcadian, Theban. You've got the...
And is he saying that each of these particular hoplite units fought in a different way?
Yeah. What you get on your unit card, you get lovely little unit cards for all of these, and you cut them out and put them in a little folder, which you glue onto card, and that's got all the QRSs on it. So it's a lovely little wood effect folder with all your unit cards in it. And the unit card has got the charts you need for the game on it. So you've got the checks you make if you're subject to missile fire. You've got the chart you need when you charge, when you make courage rolls. They're in the main part of the card. And then down the side, you've got your spear factor for attack, your shield factor and your strength, all your movement rules, and then a few other things at the bottom that affect your morale and things like that. So it's all in front of you, so you don't really need to refer to the rules an awful lot if you can get them into your head, because there's a lot of them. So a lot of the differences are in the tables and how the units react, as well as the strength of the spear and the shield that you've got. The way the game operates is you can generate your units at random, your armies at random, and you'll have now one of the things, I'll just digress for a bit. One of the things the game does is use a lot of Greek terms. One of the guys who wrote the games, his mother was Greek, so he's used a lot of terms that I've probably never said out loud and don't intend to say out loud now because my pronunciation will get them wrong. He does provide a sort of pronunciation guide, but I'm still not going to try.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So I
Hamipi.
Yeah, that's the Hamipi. That's the cavalry units. Interestingly, all the words that end in OI are pronounced E. So Siloi, he says, is pronounced Psili. There you go. That's modern Greek, not ancient Greek, apparently. Let's not go there. You can create, but because of this, he uses the Lokos and the Taxis as the units for the game. So a Lokos is your basic unit of hoplites, and that's 2 DBA-sized stands of figures back to back or front to back. And then a number of these make up a Taxis, which is your contingent from a city-state, and you can have a number of Taxis in your phalanx. So you can have different hoplites in your phalanx, and you've got all your lights and everything going on around the sides and that as well. The command phase, there are a number of command chits that you get, and you've got a little Salpinx marker, which is your musician, the guy with the horns. So you'll choose an order, pop it under your Salpinx, and then when you reveal them together, that sets the scene for what your army's going to do. And that could be just, march or halt, or send your Siloi forwards. So at that point, your main phalanx would probably stay where it is, and you'd do your skirmishing until you recall your Siloi. And you have to do that before you begin your approach for combat, because you can't do that if there are Siloi in the way. So timing your orders is the thing, and getting your light troops out of the way before either you charge or your opponent does. So there's a couple of nice things about the action phase once you get going. He calls missile fire Belos, which I'm told is pronounced Velos in modern Greek. It's spelled Belos, so I'll call it Belos. So that's your shooting. And you can do Belos fire, and you can do Belos charges. If you charge, your light troops can run forward so they get into range. Then they do their shooting. Any movement they got left, they turn around and run away and stop facing the enemy. And there's a reaction to that. If when they receive that fire, one of the outcomes is that if it's a phalanx being fired on, they can release ektromoi, which are the light hoplites. And these are mentioned by Xenophon in the Anabasis when they were coming back through Persia after the Battle of Cunaxa. They would send out the lightly armed hoplites to chase down the skirmishers that were facing them. And so that's what they've introduced here. If the ektromoi catch up with the Belos chargers, they'll destroy them, or there's a roll and one or the other is destroyed. So it's just a nice little flavourful thing. It's only summed up in a dice roll essentially, but you put your little figure out and you see what happens to him. And then when you're ready to get into melee, you declare what he calls epidromos, which is the advance to combat. At this point, he says you've got your chat with a goat, so he makes a quick sacrifice, and that could increase your arete, your overall morale. And then you make a courage roll. Whoever's the subject of your charge makes a courage roll. They may flee at that point. If not, you move up and go into combat, which is resolved in 2 stages. Epidromos, which is that initial clash. And then after that, if you stay in combat, you get the athismos, which the other game had, where you push each other back. And they're carried out in pretty much the same method, but you just get slightly different bonuses. And at this point, the work's being done. You've rolled, when you declare your epidromos, you roll to see if you get the charge distance to make it. You roll to see how much it disarrays you. You roll to see if you drift to the right. And you roll to see if you get enough momentum, which will make a difference when the lines clash. And then all you do, you compare a number of factors, which is basically the spear number of the attacker with a few modifiers against the shield number of the defender, which has got a few modifiers. And you both do this. You do it each way. If the spears are higher than the shields, any excess is compared to the strength of the defenders. And if that's penetrated, then the excess is compared to the arete value of your unit, which is based on the morale level that you're at. So you each get a level at which you penetrate the defender, as it were. You compare those levels of penetration to see what happens and who gets pushed back, who gets broken into, and if anybody's broken or if there's no effect. And then you move on to the next Lokos. So it's all kind of formalized or ritualized, if you like. It's about getting your army in the right place at the right time, so that when they clash, you know you've got what you need to break through. That's it in a nutshell. I mean, there's a lot more to it. Arete comes into the game throughout. You've got a little morale chart, and that's got numbers from 1 to 20, and different sets of those numbers correspond to whether you're eager, firm, unsteady, or shaken. And different armies have different thresholds for each of those, and the level you're at affects the dice rolls you make in every step of the way, really. Your arete level has a modifier that goes with it that'll modify all the dice rolls you make at various points during the game. So there's a lot to it. And I think the first time we play it, it's going to be quite a slow, long game. But I don't think there's anything particularly complex about it.
No, I think we have to play it. Just to look at, and it's got a really good campaign system as well, which is it's a separate game, isn't it?
It is a separate game. You could play it as a board game, but what you could also do when 2 units, it's a counter game essentially with a map and a number of cities that you can move between. And when you have a battle, you can take it to the war games table and set it up and play it through. That might be
good.
Yeah, might be. We might have to get used to the battle rules before we get that far into it.
Yeah.
It's an involved set of rules, but it comes with a wealth of historical information on the armies, who they were, where they were from, who they fought, who their leaders were at the time. It divides the 100 years that they cover between the end of the Persian invasion and the end of the Second Peloponnesian War. They divide that into 5 phases, and they sort of show how the armies developed during that time, with the introduction of more mercenary armies towards the end, and maybe the Spartans were a lot more dangerous at the start. Then the Athenians come in, and the Thebans take over towards the end. So the units you can pick at the various stages as well vary depending on when you're holding your battle. But it certainly looks interesting.
And and you can download them for nothing. You can just give a little.
And you can download them for nothing. Yeah. And what I would say, download them for nothing. Have a look at them and either be horrified or look interested and then donate something to charity.
Yeah.
So what kind of size? I mean, yeah, if you're talking about losing figures, what kind of size army do you need?
You don't lose figures. Again, it's stands that go, but you get a lot more of them in this one.
Yeah.
What I intend to do when we first play it is just pick some small armies that are the same size. But what you're supposed to do is roll on some charts. And for example, take the Athenian army. For a small army, you roll once on these charts. For a medium army, you roll twice. And for a large army, you roll 4 times. So you roll against the basic elements, which for an Athenian army are Athenian hoplites and Hellenic Siloi. And that could get you anything from 4 to 6 elements of lochoi of hoplites, and anything from 0 to 8 elements of siloi. So it's quite a swing, and it's random, and it might be unusual if you were going to play a game completely random against an enemy who could be completely outmatched straight away. There's a third line.
Yeah. There's an interesting one. I must admit, I do quite like these games that kind of have a random army generation factor, because it's well, there you go, they're your troops, get on with it.
Do what you can, yeah. Hold it.
Basically, it's like that. Yeah, basically, that's all you had,
Yeah. There are more options. There's a third row on the basic table called options, and you can have from 0 to 4 options. What you do, however many options you get, you pick a line on a further table and do the same. You roll, so you could have horse or peltasts or archers, horse archers, rowers for an Athenian army, pan-Hellenic hoplites, that sort of thing, depending on what era you're playing in. And again, you could get from 0 to 6 of those. So you could have an army with a load of hoplites from 2 different city-states and a load of siloi against an army that's not got half of either of those. But you can adjust that. You can pick them, and there are I think 7 scenarios that are on the website as well, which give historical battles with pre-generated forces. But they tend to be quite big. Yeah. So you could, for example, you could have an army that's just got 4 units of hoplites and 4 units of siloi, and that would be 8 bases of hoplites and 4 of siloi. So quite small, just to try the game out, or add more if you've got more figures.
Okay.
So, where can you find them from? What's the website address?
It's The Perfect Captain. I'll get the.
We'll chuck it into the show notes.
Put them in the show notes. Yeah, it's perfectcaptain.50megs.com/hoplomachia.html, and that's HOPLOMACHIA. But we'll put it in the show notes.
Or just do a Google for perfect.
Google Perfect Captain, yeah.
Yeah. And it has to be said, he's got a load of rules up there.
Oh yeah, and they're all beautiful. His graphic art department have done a top job.
Okay. Yeah, a good shout out to the Perfect Captain,
who has stopped supporting his games now, unfortunately. He had one of the longest running Yahoo groups I think ever, apart from a certain 2 large lardies, I think, who's still going. But he's recently said he's not going to support his games anymore. They sort of petered out in their playing the people that were playing them. But there is a Facebook group for his games as well, so some fans are keeping that going.
Cool.
Excellent stuff. Well, thank you for that, Ralph. Much appreciated.
Pleasure. I was just going to say I want to get the word for Hoplomachia out and hope that a few players pick it up and get the game going, because you don't hear an awful lot about it.
Well, no. I mean, when you talk about detailed hop-like combat, it's yet again one of those niche within niche sort of games.
It really is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, who knows, as I say, especially with the current interest generated in Greek warfare, by the latest new thing, putting other things out there, kind of going, well, yeah, you got your figures, so why not, why not look at something else while you're at it, sort of thing.
Yeah, there are more options available. Yeah.
Indeed. Great. Okay. In that case, what we'll do, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, it'll be time to wrap up. Well, thanks for that, Ralph. One quick question, which I'm not quite sure was answered throughout that, but I just wanted to check. You said that it's always been an interest of yours. Is there any particular reason why, or is there any particular aspect of ancient Greek warfare that particularly attracted to you? The whole period.
The bronze-oiled man.
I refuse to be drawn into that conversation. No, I don't know. I mean, I'd always said interest for me stopped when gunpowder came along. That's changed, obviously. So from very early on, I was interested in the ancient and the medieval side of the hobby. And it's just the look of the armies, I think, that really is, and the way they fought. I've read a bit of Thucydides and a bit of Xenophon, and the way they describe the battles as going is just really evocative, and it just struck a chord with me, I suppose. And the look of the armies, as I say, when they're all lined up, it's just so different. It's not like anything else really from any other period of history. And yeah, it just really appealed to me from that. And then I was really sort of knocked back when I tried it with DBA. So the next game I think I found after that was Hoplomachia, and that's probably why I haven't played many hoplite battles since then. But I love it. I've got the figures, and I really want to use them. So we'll get a few people who are willing to try it with me, and we'll have a go.
Cool. Well, I'm sure you could convince at least somebody in your group to say, right, okay, let's get some more Greeks on the table.
Mark has agreed.
Yes.
Mark wants to try it.
Yeah.
So we'll rope the others in.
Yeah, let's move away. Let's move away from these confounded silly phalanxes of nine figures and move on to something a bit more
meaty.
Yeah.
a bit more sizable. Yeah.
12 figures.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go there, but there you go. Right. Cool, excellent stuff. Right, so here we are. We're at the back end of the show. I know there was a couple of bits of news I wanted to talk about, but obviously we also have the what's Dave been buying. Wow. Here you see, we now have an issue.
He's caught on, isn't he?
No, well, no, it's even worse than that.
He stopped buying?
You see, you see, currently we are a team without location. We have been, some would say splashed to the four winds. Basically, our office space is currently undergoing almost literal reconstruction. They're basically turning it from a set of offices into an open plan area. As a result, because we are capable of doing so, we basically turned around and said, okay, until the building work is finished, you guys can work from home because you have that capability. So we kind of went, yeah, okay. So you know what? Working from as Michael has no doubt discovered over the years, working from home means you can hide what you're buying, because not only does no one else see it, but you don't get to talk to it. You don't get to talk about it to anybody, or don't have to confess it to anybody, because that normal office banter is missing to a greater or lesser extent. So unfortunately, Dave could have been spending a humongous amount of money, and I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
He's found the perfect time to be buying.
So what you're saying is he's hiding his purchases from his wargaming wife.
That's how I read it.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's me. I think when we next see him, I shall have to take him to task. So right. So that is the piece of news. One other piece of news actually, that I was going to quickly mention because I don't know how many people have actually picked up on this. It's something I happened to notice actually while I was on YouTube, and that is the fact that as it would appear that, at least for the moment, Fantasy Flight Games have decided that they are no longer releasing any more physical product for Imperial Assault.
Ooh.
Apparently that came out during a Q&A session at the recent Star Wars convention in Chicago. FFG had a panel, and basically one of the questions they were asked was, what are your plans for Imperial Assault? And because it was Andrew Varro, who's basically taken over as CEO from Christian Peterson, and he was originally quite evasive about it, saying that, well, yeah, we're working on, they are working on a lot of the app expansions and bringing all the physical expansions into the app and various other bits and pieces. They're doing a lot of work for the app at the moment. I think it seems like that's really been a way to go. And apparently this guy just wouldn't take no, just wouldn't be fobbed off and wouldn't take no for an answer, and basically came back and they couldn't get the mic off him. And he basically turned around and said, okay, so what are the plans for any physical expansions? And and he said, but at the moment we have none. Which is interesting, because it basically so someone immediately says, does that mean Imperial Assault is dead then? I was like, sort of comment that drives me up the ball. And it's like, no, it means that from a physical expansion point of view, it would appear that at the moment the game is a complete system.
Yeah, it pretty much released everything.
Well, I mean, let's face it. What else is there at the moment? You
can quite merrily just release expansion campaigns for £5 a time, people to buy.
Yeah, and the app works really well. Okay, there's a certain amount of work. There's a certain amount of work that you've got to do with it, but and I must admit, I've had to go back a couple of times to effectively the tutorial to kind of work, just to work out that we're just to kind of sit and work out that we're doing everything correctly. Especially since when you haven't played it for a few weeks and you come back to it and you kind of go, hang on a second, because like when you're doing like enemy orders, they have a priority in what happens, and you basically follow the priority order. Anyway, but I just thought that was an interesting piece of news, which doesn't really appear to have been mentioned too much in the media. It's something I picked up on and kind of went, oh, that's interesting. So perhaps for those of us who are late starters, it might actually give us potentially give us a chance to catch up, if ever we get round to it. And while we're not buying Greeks and Lord of the Rings and fantasy armies and other such things. So there we go.
Interesting.
So it certainly means that you can complete your collection, Mr. Hobbs.
Yeah, there's a finite amount of stuff now that you can get.
Indeed, yes. Which for some is actually a bonus.
That's how I'd see it, I think.
Yeah.
Indeed. Cool. And so on that, I think we'll bring proceedings to a close. So considering it's yet again getting past our bedtimes, and just want to say thank you to Ralph for coming along, and joining us and
ranting on for a little too long. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
No, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thank you so much for coming on.
Me.
Really enjoyed
Cheers,
chatting with you. I know it's. I know once we started doing third chairs, it was we kind of had you in the crosshairs a little bit as someone we wanted to have on. So thank you very much for coming on. It's been great to have you.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thank you.
Cool. All than that, other than that's left to be said, is thank you once again to our breakfast champion.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Ralph, for coming on. It's been great.
Cheers, Mike.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for everything, and thank you for
Turning it up.
thank you for guiding for guiding us through that phalanx-tastic review.
Oh.
I think I'll step
wrap up now, wrap up.
Run away very quickly. So all that's left to be said is thank you one and all for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you especially to all our patrons for supporting the show. We really appreciate it. And until next time, happy gaming, and we'll catch up with you really soon.
Roll good dice.
Thank you for listening to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, why not share it with others by leaving us a review on iTunes? And if you have any comments or questions, you can always email the show. The address is info@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. And you can also visit our webpage, where you'll find a complete episode archive, all the View from the Veranda podcasts, rules reviews, and our blog of hobby items and news, which is updated several times a week. This is also where you'll find the links to our presence on social media, and here you can follow us on Twitter or join our Facebook group. And finally, here you can also find details should you wish to support us by making a donation to the podcast. All this on the Meeples and Miniatures website, www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 3.0 Unported license. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.